Well, sir, I don't know. That's not an acceptable answer. Of course, I've been saved about 5 minutes. So I'm quickly reverting back to my old self that was, not too far in my past. And she burst into tears, and I'm glad that you're sorry that you can't find my son, but what are we doing here? Everybody's still milling around. It's Easter. They're holding doors open. People are in and out of the building. He's this tall. I'm thinking, and my mind's reeling, even if he wasn't abducted, he's walking around. He's going to walk out in the parking lot. Doors are being held open. He's going to get backed up over by accident. All these different things. He can go into a mechanical room. He can do all these different things and get hurt or die or be abducted. And they didn't have an answer for me. I went to Pastor Wayne. I'm like, you've lost my child. What are we doing? I have no idea. Do you have communications with the parking lot? Nope, we don't. So you don't have a way to shut down the parking lot. You don't have a way to lock down the facility. You don't have any of these things in place. And then about 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes into it, Ethan had been going to church with Kim, for this year that I hadn't. He just went ahead while everybody was holding the doors open, let himself out, walked a couple hallways down, found an empty classroom, was in there playing toys by himself. So, best case scenario. It had to be the Holy Spirit. I didn't really get angry. I was angry, but I didn't really get angry. Pastor Wayne probably called me 15, 20 times that day, just checking to see if I was okay. I looked at my wife and I said, you know what, I really want to meet with the pastor. And she's like, no, you can't. And Pastor Wayne calls my wife and says, I really want to meet with your husband. She goes, no, you really don't. So we met. And again, he was extremely receptive. I said, these are the things that I see from where my perspective is where we could have done this better. And that started my journey about 21 years ago in church security. And since then, I got my credentialing. I finished my credentialing. Tony Mossberg came to me and she said, hey, how do you feel about putting a class together and just teaching it at ISOM Plus? And so over the last 10, 15 years, I've been teaching it all over the state, surrounding states. I'll take it to anybody, any church, any denomination, any faith. I take it to them and I teach it. There's plenty of companies out there that'll come in and charge you a ton of money and probably do the same thing, maybe a little bit higher speed than what I do, but God's put it on my heart that this gift that I feel that I possess to keep churches safe isn't for me to hold on to. It's for me to share with people and to share with other churches, and it is what it's worth. This document isn't perfect. Right before I left Grace, I had 2 different things that weren't in here. I had a gentleman that attended Grace that had a DNR, so he had a terminal disease, was signed a DNR. His wife said, hey, if my husband codes at church, I don't want your medical team to try and save his life because he has a DNR. That I didn't have any of that in my manual, had to write a new policy for it, and they have to have that DNR on file with the church. Because as a medical professional, if you have a nurse or a doctor or an EMT on staff, they're bound by law to assist somebody who's in need of medical attention unless you have that document in hand to say, hey, don't save my loved one, just let them expire. Let's get the ambulance here, we'll transport out and handle it. So that was kind of a new one for me, and it's in our SOPs now there at Grace. But you'll have things like that'll come up that are unique to you geographically, to your church, and things that you deal with, and you just bring those things to your attention, you get them in there, you keep updating this document, and it'll just be the best it can be. The other thing is, the team leader and the pastor make sure whatever insurance you are using, it has a security rider. If it doesn't have a security rider, your insurance is not going to cover your security and medical team. So even my little teeny tiny church down in Bloomfield, we have Brotherhood Mutual, and I picked up the security rider there, so I guess I'm the pastor and security there. So, but it just carries that. So if, you're showing somebody the door, and then 3 days later, their attorney calls and says, well, you twisted my person's arm, and now they got, $10,000 in medical expenses, that goes back on insurance, and not the person isn't civilly liable themselves. They'll try and sue you, but the insurance should cover it as long as you have that rider. But I'm not terribly popular with a lot of the senior pastors, especially with these bigger churches, because they really like all this openness. And from a security standpoint for you guys, this is a nightmare. It's very difficult to secure areas like this. You have to be very vigilant. You have to be very cognizant of what's going on around you. I don't know where you stand now as far as security cameras or something like that, but that will alleviate a lot of stress for your security and medical teams. We established when we did the new addition on the Grace, we established a dispatch room. I think last count, I had somewhere around 62 cameras. So then I had 2 people that would work dispatch, one that would watch camera, one would run the radio, and then we had an internal radio system that we could use. You can get those for time being. You can get like those little Motorola's and stuff like that. Just keep in mind, as soon as the neighborhood kids figure out that you have them, they're going to get on there and talk to you while you're trying to work. We went through that for several years, finally went to like a Kenwood. You're supposed to have a license to use them. We've kind of glid under the radar. It's not very difficult to get one, but you can get one of those, and it only has to be one person on the entire team that has that licensure. But we've kind of glid under the radar on that one. But it's nice because it's a closed system, and people can't get on your system and kind of cause you grief. But those radios aren't inexpensive. I think, somewhere around $250 a piece. And then everybody wanted an earpiece, and they're about $110 for the earpiece. I bought the first earpiece. You lost your earpiece, next one's on you, is how I did that. So, and no one wants to share an earpiece, so don't think you can buy like 6 earpieces and say, oh, we'll just put, hand sanitizer there and just buy everybody an earpiece. So no one wants to share. But on that note, we can look around, see what we got going in the church. Again, I would see this breaking up. Radios are probably the first thing, even if you go to an inexpensive, just for now. I'm sure you have a parking lot team. You don't have a parking lot, really? As big as this is? Okay, so if you establish a parking lot ministry, we had 3 channels. We had medical, we had safety, and we had a parking lot ministry. So we could switch in between all 3. A lot of times, medical and security would kind of hone in on the same channel, and I never really gave them too much grief about that, because we all were generally responding to the same issues. But the parking lot I always wanted on separate, because they chatter a lot about who's at what entrance and start talking about things, and I didn't want to hear all that, so I put them on a separate channel. But it is nice that if a car comes in, that's your first point of contact. Not to profile, but profiling is honestly a really good thing if you use it correctly. If someone pulls in and they have a bunch of bumper stickers that don't align with your belief system, that might be a clue. Why are they coming to church? Maybe they're coming to get saved. Maybe they're not, right? So we're looking at indicators like that, things like that, looking at people sitting in the parking lot for extended amounts of time before they come inside, things along those lines. So that would be your first point of contact, radio in. Gives security a heads up, so as soon as that person hits the door, we have eyes on them. Your cell phone can be your best friend, because most people will not think off the cuff. You shake their hand, hey, I'm Ethan, is your first time guest, I've never seen you here. They'll give you their name. If they're hesitant, then again, that's another clue. But generally, they'll give you their name because they don't think that quickly to falsify that. And what they want is anonymity. And once you have shaken that person's hand, once you have engaged them, they've lost that, because now they feel like, oh man, they know I'm here, right? And you can go over in the corner and get on there and start Googling their name, go through my case and several other options out there, and see what go to Facebook, see what they put on, and just start perusing those things and see if this is somebody you need to be concerned about. And I don't want to get ahead of it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's go ahead and do the tour. I'm going to give you the whole class standing right here in the foyer. So let's go ahead and walk around a little bit, and we'll get deeper into stuff when we get in there, and you guys can get sat down. So where do you want to go first?
Yeah, so just a couple of quick things. Just to highlight real fast, because I know a lot of you volunteered here, and you don't really have the context. So I'm the only security we have on Sunday mornings right now. On average, we have 3 cleaning or electrical rooms left open every Sunday morning that I end out locking before our first service. Generally, it's the cleaning room across from the kids area with all the chemicals that's always left open every single Sunday. So I'll just throw that out there. 5 times this year, we've had people in the parking lot that haven't come in. Back in May, we had almost a fight break out in the parking lot back there that I was watching very closely while service was going on. We've had people go up into the kids area and just like hang out, and they just stay there until I introduce myself and ask them to leave. So we actually do have things that happen on Sunday mornings that right now it's just me, and there are a couple times I've had to call someone and be like, hey, can you come like out here as well, because it's a little awkward. So the other thing to note are these doors here. We're going to get into it real fast as we go around, but the windows are being replaced here in about a month and a half in the doors, and we'll be adding security to all the glass doors around the building. So just so you know, and then the video cameras, we are applying for a grant right now to try to get video cameras in next year. So this is something we're taking seriously and something we're actually actively working on. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. So.
Awesome.
Josh, you said you're changing the windows and doors, but you didn't, or I didn't hear you say.
Yeah.
In what way?
Yeah, so we're going to be putting what's called school guard glass. So it's not bulletproof technically, but it's like shatterproof, resistant-proof. It's what schools use and in places like that. It's what they recommend for these type of doors. So we're going to be replacing here back by the kids area and over by the offices. And my hope is to get that done in October. We're actually getting done in Attica right now. So, but I just want to let you guys know that this is something that we are working on very actively, and it's something that's been very seriously considered. And the board is aware that we're actually working on this.
So you're saying it's safety as in people won't be cut by big pieces of glass, or you're saying it's safety from an intruder? The glass.
Yes. Both. So it won't shatter. What'll happen is the glass wouldn't fail. So if someone was shooting it, it would spider web, but it won't fail and drop like you see in some videos where the glass just drops to the ground. Or if a child runs into it hard enough, it will shatter, but it won't fail. So if someone came up and you denied them entry with a gun, obviously it's not going to stop the bullet, but it'll stop them from just shooting the glass out and then continuing on. Even if they have a hammer or anything, they can beat on it, and it takes a while to get it to finally to drop. It'll hang in there pretty tight for a while. I mean, you really got to beat on it and basically bust the frame all the way out before it'll just kind of fall as one big panel. It won't just come out.
And sometimes it's not here. So like on Sunday mornings, I try to monitor like the community, because like when we were in Minneapolis, there was one Sunday where there was a threat to the bigger church. It was like 13 miles away from us. So we shut the building down, so that way no one can get in during service. So it's not always what's happening here, it's other things as well. So. All right,
So where should we head to first?
Do you want to walk around the building, or?
Whatever. We can go. I did a quick lap around in my car before I parked. Whatever zones. I mean, obviously, these are your biggest concern, right? I've heard somebody say go upstairs. Is your children areas up the stairs? Are any of the other like little single doors, are they all unlocked on Sunday morning, or?
All the glass doors are unlocked. So we've got these here. We have the flagpole entrance all the way down, and we've got the entrance by the offices and the entrances by the here. So we've got 3 that aren't right here. I think so. Yeah.
You have greeters or anything at those doors?
Nope, nobody.
Okay. All right. We can walk back here and look. I'm just, yeah. I know sometimes volunteers are difficult, right? It is difficult, but those are all. I mean, if there's a unlocked door, someone has to be there. And even if it's not a security, because you can't spread your security that thin. If it's a greeter, at least then they can greet. They can deny someone entry if someone wants to come in. So.
So you're saying any entrance if it's going to be unlocked,
Someone needs to be there. And and at some juncture, and we talked about it a little bit before, at some juncture, I would feel like those doors would be done. I mean, you're 5-10 minutes out from service, shut them and lock them, and people can come to these doorways, or preferably one, but both, since they're in close proximity, you could do them both. But there's no reason. I mean, if you're late and you're parking way back there, I'm sorry, you got to walk 75 more feet. That's just way. I mean, you shouldn't have been late. I don't know. And most of the pastors that follow that will find that people start being on time for church because they get embarrassed. You know, when you open the door, you go and you say, "Hey, you know, you're glad you realize it starts at 11, right?" They'll start, you know, because and you know who your late people are, but you know what, they can come to the mains, because those are pretty isolated. I mean, just from where we're standing now, those are pretty isolated entrances. So I would
have some convenience entrances unlocked right now that we should have.
and like Pastor said, there should be, if a classroom's not being used, if there's things not being used, they should never be left unlocked. I mean, nothing good can happen in an empty classroom, regardless if it's a safety risk or it's teenagers trying to find a quiet space, whatever it may be. There's just no reason for those to be unlocked, especially mechanical rooms. Not too long ago in Indianapolis, well, I say not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, they had a built-in baptismal. They left the door unlocked, and a 2-year-old fell in and drowned. That's worst case scenario, but you're done. Just lock your doors, take your signage off the outside of the building, because you were done. Liability-wise, your insurance company's going to shut you down. Someone gets into a mechanical room, a young kid drinks bleach, gets into chemicals, gets electrocuted, messes with something, you're done. I mean, you just might as well change your name, buy a new building, go somewhere else, because this facility will be shut down. So.
Why don't we go next to our RC students area, right upstairs here, because that's an interesting location, access to our students, but also that is our least secured entrance into our kids area as well. Want to go there next, upstairs here?
Yeah.
I'll follow you
I got
guys.
the camera.
It's funny because we focus so much on hospitality and not so much on the other. You want to make sure your coffee's hot and there's plenty of donuts, but
We need more donuts.
well, you know, you always have a box of you. So as soon as you designate a security room, then there's always some back in the hole, right? So.
So this is access to. We have a lower floor for kids ministry that is secured a little bit more, but this would be our least secured point of entrance into what do we call this? K through 5.
Yeah, kids area.
Or junior high and high school students this way. So.
Okay. And these are probably fire doors, so they're not meant to be security, and the fire marshal would lose his mind if you barricaded them somehow. So what I always suggest is anytime there's somewhere where kids are, you have to figure out a way to secure it from the outside. That's just a fact. The problem with these doors, the way that by design, is if there's a fire, they'll shut, but they're still accessible because of the push bars either direction, and the fire marshal would lose his mind if you change that. But what you have to figure out a way to limit access. If it's at the bottom of the staircase, is that the only way up? Do you have an elevator?
We also have an elevator, yeah. And there's other stairways throughout the building.
You just have to figure out a way to siphon that down to one point. And, you know, and putting a ribbon across with a sign that says, hey, don't go up these staircases isn't going to work. It'll work for everybody that's following the rules, but it won't work for people that aren't. So what you're looking for is, especially, does your elevator open up into your children's area?
Almost. It's
Okay.
the hallway right.
So what we did is same thing at Grace. We had an elevator that opened up into our children's area. Is we keyed it. We had a passcode on it, and I think they changed it to a key. I'm not positive, but we only had like 3 or 4 people that were using the elevator, like grandparents that were going to get their kids or something like that. We just gave them the code. Asked them not to share it. If they share it, it is what it is. We can always change the code, but it was easier to give the 3 or 4 or 5 people the code to use the elevator than it was to just give like a security guy a key, and then he's, he or she's running all over the place trying to unlock this elevator. So we just put like a touchpad on it and put in an electronic code. That way they could still access it. But the scary part with the elevator, especially at our church, was it just opened up right into the kids area. I mean, doors opening, you're there. So we needed to find a way to do that. That was about the best way to secure that, was with a keypad.
Yeah, again, that's really insightful. It's turning something we're currently using out of a lot of convenience into something that is, use it like functionally. If they,
Right.
if somebody actually has a disability or needs to use that elevator, limiting access to that.
Right. And that would be something to probably fall into the security grant, is putting keypads, and I don't know, are you still on like mechanical locks here, or do you have the key fobs?
No, that's what we're gonna be starting to change here in a month and a half.
I was going to say that could go into your grant too. That would be covered in that FEMA grant if that's the one you're going after. So there really should be very few mechanical keys handed out. Once you go to that key fob system, I can give everybody in here a key fob. And the nice part about it is you can get a report what time they're going in and out of the church. And if they quit coming to church and you can't get in contact with them to get it back, you just swipe of a keypad and their key fob doesn't work anymore. So when I started with key fob, it was honestly, I was plowing snow for Grace. And I was there at like 6 in the morning, and here came the secretary, and she has her arm loads, she's got her coffee, she's got all her stuff in her purse, and it's snowing just to beat the band, and she's trying to get her key in the door and do all this, and I thought, if she does this every morning and no one's here, that's a huge liability, a huge safety risk for her, because not only does she get into the church, she still has her arms loaded, so she probably goes to her desk, puts all her stuff down, comes back, and then relocks the door. With a key fob, as soon as that door opens and closes, it latches behind them. And you don't have to do your main doors. You just figure out whatever single entrance you want everybody coming in and out of that gets a key fob, and you just pick one of those single doors, because it's really difficult to do those double doors. So I would look at that in the security grant too. As far as this right here, it's just extremely difficult with these doors. And I know the churches are not real happy about maybe putting in a new door in a doorway or at the bottom of the stairs, posting somebody from children's ministry, just having somebody there because once children's ministry starts at Grace, that we lock it down. And the only way you can get your kid out if you have to leave early is you have to call in to somebody that's internal to bring your child out, because we just close it down and lock the doors. When they're in the children's sanctuary, the doors are locked. And then there's a set of doors similar to these, but they actually lock where the child care rooms are. So like 15 minutes after, they don't accept any more kids. Doors shut, they lock, and that area is secure.
But it gets worse.
Gets worse?
Are we gonna walk that way now?
Yeah. So
All right.
walk this way.
All right.
So this is what I've been struggling with, because we do want to secure, then we also
Sure.
need to, like you said, fire marshal.
All right.
So here is that's the room that gets left open most Sundays. which is
Yeah.
fun. Anyway, so there's the elevator, but then, so we do have someone here who checks people in and out.
Okay.
So they can't leave, but I just wanted to show you the other side.
Well, this is, can I show you?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
this
we'll go in there in a second. I just want to, so he sees the area. Just so you see the area. And the problem is,
Oh, wow.
there's no doors on the, well, I mean, there are doors, but they're in front of the bathroom, so.
Okay.
Really, there's no doors.
And down there's just another staircase that goes
So
down?
there's another
Staircase.
staircase. Yeah.
That leads to more doors downstairs.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've struggled some with how do we secure this area without running into fire marshal issues, fire code.
And that, well, the problem is you need the doors to swing one direction, right? So if you swing them one direction, which is why they have those swinging opposite directions, people can still get in, but they can get out.
Mm-hmm.
what we've done is swung them where they both swing the same direction, and the fire marshal again might not be real happy about it, but the children's pastor is in charge of making sure those are re-unlocked and things along those lines. So we secure our areas and lock it down. You can still get out, you just can't get in. Fire marshal probably would still have an issue with that.
That's a conversation to have with them.
It is. I would bring in your local fire department and ask them what they would like you to do. At the very least, you could put a counter across. At least then somebody has to come across the counter, put your check-in areas, push them out as far as you can, and putting your check-ins, and children's ministry is just going to have to post somebody there. And then when you get your radio system, then those people that are posted those positions have radios. The big thing is getting them used to using them. So I would always go by and make them check in. So hey, so when you take over this desk for the 9 a.m. service, make sure you hit in dispatch, and that way they get used to keying that radio. Because if they don't get used to keying that radio, when something does go wrong, their first thought isn't to grab that radio, right? So you have to get them used to keying that radio up and talking to people. So I'd put, what I would do would work temporarily, even if you had some of those roll away like coffee carts, and put it across there. Because really parents don't need access in here, and that's another thing. They could have an internal radio system here, stop any adults at either end, and little Johnny's time to come out. Here's a parent, turn in their tag, hit in the radio, whoever's in that room, okay, it's time for Johnny to come out, parents here. And just one at a time, as people ask for their kid, let them go out and receive them at the desk at either end. Or you just designate, this is the in and this is the out. And just, and it's hard on the onset, but as people get with the flow, they will. And you just designate, hey, don't come to this end if you're picking up, because it's going to be closed, or vice versa. And people will get it, and they'll understand it. And you can go as far as saying, hey, this is what we're doing to keep your kids secure, right? These doors all lock. All the teachers know the lockdown procedures to lock the doors. They probably, as soon as class starts, should have them locked anyway, because it's kind of out of sight or out of mind. I notice they all have little windows. You really want something that's able to block that window, because if let's say an active shooter came through here, what they're looking for is body count. So if they can't see into a door, if this is blocked, they're going to pass it. If it's locked and it's blocked, they know they only have a certain amount of time to do as much damage as possible, so they're going to keep moving. So what a lot of them will do will put like little hooks on the inside, and maybe have a piece of cloth flipped up, and if there's an issue, door's locked, or even once the class starts, just pull the piece of cloth down. And it's that way you don't even have to worry about it if you don't know that there's an issue. And then when class is over, you unlock the door, you lift your thing up, because there shouldn't be any adults in there by themselves with their kids anyway, so there should be 2 adults with the kids, right?
Well,
Most of the time.
For life groups and stuff, sometimes it is just a single adult. And one of the reasons that we specifically like the windows is because it provides accountability.
It does.
But
when you do your camera system, camera your rooms. So that would be, if next time we have like a stand conference or something at Grace, or Vital, they'll come back there. Grace is just going through some growing stuff right now. That's why they got out this year. But I can take you and show you the dispatch rooms, and all of our children's rooms are cambered.
So that's something we need to consider, because there's advantages and disadvantages from an insurance perspective.
Right.
Of cammering kids' rooms, which is why we've gone away from it.
Well, the flip side is, and everybody's scared of cameras, but when they put cameras on law enforcement, 9 times out of 10, when the person complained, they found out the officer was actually doing the right thing. People would complain, say, I'm going to sue because he punched me in the face. Well, why did he punch your face? I don't know, I was just standing there. Let's look at the video. Oh, well, you grabbed him by his throat and tried to pull his gun out of his holster, so he punched you in the face, right? So same thing with the room. Some parent comes back and says, well, my kid said the X, Y, and Z, and the teacher slapped him. Well, you go back and you look at the video. The teacher didn't slap him. No lawsuit, you're out. It helps as much as it can hurt. I mean, if you're afraid of what they might catch on camera, then we got a different issue, right? So I would be more apt to say that the cameras in the room will protect you on the liability side more than they will hurt you. And and if there is a teacher that has done something wrong, then you hand that over to the proper authorities and say, we've done our due diligence, and you move on, right?
We can have a conversation about that.
But you'd camera here and here. I'd camera the rooms, and if you do check-in tables, camera those so they're well viewed. I mean, just this area alone, you're eating up probably 20 cameras. And I mean, a church this size, you're really looking at probably 64 cameras by the time you go inside and out. And that's what I always say, when you go to buy your DVR system, overbuy, right? So if you go and you buy a 64 camera DVR, you're gonna max it out, and then you have no expansion. And the cost at the front side is a lot less than when you try and play catch up on the back side. So you get it at least 12, 14 cameras expandable on the top plus side, because eventually you'll get it here and you'll be sitting there and you'll be looking at your TVs and you'll be like, man, I wish I had a camera there and there.
Well, I do want to be respectful. Time is 10:40.
Yeah.
And we've only done a very small
A
portion of
tenth.
church. Where,
Can I ask a question about the kids' theater area?
yep, all right.
So all of our doors,
Let's go down to,
so all of our doors open outward like this, but at the moment, we keep them all unlocked. And if we wanted to
There are
lock
keys,
them, we
though.
would have to come outside to lock them. So
Don't those have a
what?
Allen key?
Right here.
I think there's an Allen key.
Oh, is there?
Allen key.
Well, I know that we can lock
Should be a
with
thing on the.
Right
this
here, isn't it?
default thing too.
Isn't that it? Push it in and put your Allen key in there and lock it maybe.
So you can lock it from inside.
You
you're
should,
saying?
it should take an Allen key. It should be about that long. It'll have like a round head on it and just a long Allen. And you can still get out. You just can't get in, right?
And there's 4 entrances, so.
And that's why you really, I mean, individually, the best case scenario is to lock each individual room. Temporarily, again, I'd set tables, or get, like, if you have the rollaway cafe carts, or if you're industrious enough to build cabinets across there with the countertop and just like a Dutch door on one end, and just really limit people's access to just coming back here without somebody putting eyes on them. Right? I mean, obviously someone can jump over a table and run down the hallway, but any obstacle that you can put in their place helps and disrupts the flow.
All right, well, I do apologize. I just know we're running a little short in time, so let's keep
Yep.
walking. We might have to have you up again.
Ow. If people have other things, we'll just, as they dwindle out, we'll just keep moving.
And so on and these.
Right, sure.
So the cameras, I do want to have a conversation about that. 'Cause
Yeah.
Daycare specifically.
Uh-huh.
Rooms used for daycare.
I was told that I had to
We've actually been recommended by insurance not to in the rooms because they get a lot of parents who want to do this, even when nothing's happened, because of complaints, whatever. And we've had churches that's all they do is they provide videos to parents because parents know they're there.
We've had 1 or 2 times in all the years we've had them in there where people have asked us to check,
Does Grace have daycare?
and,
Does Grace have a daycare?
not a daycare, that's just childcare on Sundays.
See, the childcare on Sundays I'd be comfortable with. It's the daycare where
Okay.
I'm more like, because
Well.
we have a lot of vouchers so you get.
Sure. Oh, well, how are you? Sorry.
They are really up.
Yeah, we're coming in, mess up your day, aren't we? Sorry about that.
So this is more secure because this is the infant area of our daycare.
Okay.
So we also use it for our pre-K on Sunday mornings.
Okay.
So we do have those doors closed, they're electronically locked, so whoever's here has
Nice.
to plug them in. And then, like I said, that's actually a door that on Sunday mornings is used quite a bit because we have a lot of our volunteers coming down there, so they're not taking their parking spots and things like that. So we have a lot of foot traffic through here.
So what if you, in your security grant, write up putting electronic doors at either end of the upstairs and just have it all keyed to this location?
Interior?
Do the same doors like you have here. Put them at the top of the staircase. Check with your fire marshal, obviously. But if you have them here and they're not having an issue with it, then you may be able to do them up there.
Okay.
And then if this is going to be your central, I know you said you check in upstairs.
Yeah, this is pre-K upstairs for school age.
I mean, you could put in a second up there and do a similar check-in kiosk up there and do the same electronic, maybe to the hallways, maybe not so much where the stairwell is, but once where that hallway starts and ends on either side, do those type of doors, and then just do a check-in kiosk, and that would all fall in that FEMA grant.
Okay.
But that's what I would think, that because it seems like when we got to the top of those stairs up there, there's a fairly large area right there that you could probably put in some sort of check-in station similar to this. And you could also split your DVRs, so you could have your DVRs here for this area, have your DVRs for there. The only problem is when you start splitting them too much, and we did that at Grace, sometimes your feed gets interrupted because our dispatch room has all the cameras. And sometimes when you set up a couple different DVRs, if that DVR has an issue, like over here, it'll cut the feed to everybody. So you got to be cognizant of that when the person installs the system. But that's how I'd picture this. This is good. I like these doors. It's hard for me to get it past pastors, but this door, honestly, 5-10 minutes after service starts, it's done. I'd shut it down and just tell people, you have to have one of those video messages at the beginning when everybody's, getting ready for praise and worship that says, hey, by the way, starting October or whatever, those back doors, 5-10 minutes after service starts are going to be secured, so you're going to have to use the main entrances. And there's still people, they won't hear it. They're going to come, they're going to rattle the door, and they're going to walk around and go, why are the doors locked? Well, the video message we played for the last, 12 Sundays told you it was going to be. You weren't paying attention, right? Or you were probably late and you missed the message.
On the greeting teams, 15 minutes after you're done greeting, the doors are locked 15 minutes after the service begins. Isn't that correct? Because that's when we all go back to our seats.
They're not locked.
Oh, they're not. Okay, I did not know that.
And if you're not going to lock the main doors, and a lot of the larger churches won't, and I get it to an extent, especially now that I'm a pastor, I get it a little bit better than I did when I was just a security guy. But the smaller, more perimeter doors, they should be done. There's no reason for anybody to be. There's no reason for anybody to be back here anyway once service starts. And that's, again, we'll get into in the sanctuary where then we'll start having conversations when you said, like, you have people just kind of hanging out, and it's like, why would you hang out in the children's area? That already gets me kind of worried about things, right? So, but yeah, I think once you secure that other one, that really restricts the flow here, because there's really no other reason for anybody to come back here. And they really even shouldn't use it for an exit during service. They're like, oh, well, I'm cutting out 20 minutes early and I want to come down through here. Can they? Sure, it's probably a push bar, but we try and
That would also
sway
eliminate
them.
use of the other stairway to go upstairs too, right?
Yeah, once that door's locked, they'd have to come by here to get to that stairwell.
To the other stairwell.
Well, or they can go by the offices.
We should do something similar to this. If we're doing it up there, we should.
Right.
the office.
Right.
But like people
Well-
go back to the fellowship hall all the time for growth track and whatnot, so like there's reasons that people need to access that
Sure.
area.
Down here, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, kind of his thought on upstairs, the loft area, adding something like this. We kind of already have some infrastructure on the office side with these kind of things, and so the office wing over there. We could kind of just lock that down.
Yeah. That has not been locked since I've been here. It's a dream.
Well, and that's the hard part is when they design these facilities and they do these things, generally security's not even on their radar, right? It's all about the flow of traffic and the hospitality and high bright ceilings and lots of glass and
Well, and it's been.
and I
built-
get it to an extent.
And it's been built over time.
Sure, and added.
Yeah.
Well, I
so-
mean, it's how Grace is. It's on its 4th construction project. So, and every time they add another layer, it's like, so, but yeah, I think that would solve a lot of your problems. I think over here is just securing that door and being done with this. Honestly, probably as soon as the service starts, I don't even know that I'd wait 5 minutes or 10 minutes after. Just log it down, give everybody as much head notice as you can, and you're still going to have the half dozen people that didn't hear it, didn't pay attention, whatever, and it's okay. It's not going to kill them to walk a couple more feet. They'll be all right. They'll be disgruntled for a minute, and then they'll forget about it. That's why we call them sheep. Right? They're sheep dogs, and then there's sheep. Right? There's people that are vigilant, and they're always looking, always paying attention, and then there's others that can really walk by a catastrophe and not even look up from their cell phones. So that's it. What's next?
Want to walk around?
Yeah, we can, I think we have time to take you to,
Okay.
like, maybe that other side.
All right. I've been in a couple churches. I don't know if you've ever been to Diversity. That's a beautiful, they donated a old Catholic church downtown. It's beautiful. You want to talk about the weirdest thing ever though. It's got doors and these little like hidden, like you can push a bookcase out of the way and slide down the wall space, and it's like, this is awful, dude. I'm like, huh?
So this is obviously North.
Sure.
So this is what my wife is referring to.
Okay.
So we have growth track here on Sundays.
Okay.
So
Sorry,
we
we're making noise, aren't we?
people here on Sundays.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were involved.
That stairway. is
That's
just
when it
right up
pops
to
up.
One of the kids' areas, and there's another stairway right over there that does the same thing.
Yeah, there's no.
And I mean, you can always key those doors. You can put a door there and key it where I know for a fact the fire marshal won't say anything about. You can key it with the push bar that people can get out, but you can't get back up, right? So you can always do that in stairwells. Now that I think about it, because we did get ours approved.
One question I have, if you had any thoughts as you see it, this is like an interesting space for us. There's our actual entrance doors here. It's an airlock, so there's another double there. There's that double door there, but there's also this side here. And maybe not so much on Sundays, but on like weekends, on Saturdays, this is really like our main room where, like what's going on right now, things go on. Do you have any thoughts as to like what would be the best configuration of doors shut or open?
Well, the only one, if this is the only room they're using, they shouldn't have access to anything else, right? So if you leave this door for them, it falls on the shoulders of the person that's running the class. The bad side of that is most of the time they're not security minded, right? They're here to teach class, and they generally may be here by themselves other than the attendees of the class. So we want to, once they let the people in for the class, the main door should just be shut and locked. Shouldn't be free to come in now because they unlock it and then they're in here in the classroom and whoever's just walking about the church if they come in, right? So we want to secure that entry as soon as class starts, as soon as everybody that's on the roster has shown up. And it's kind of it's inconvenient for people to have to come up that are like, hey, they knew I was going to be at the church at noon and I had to use my key because the door was unlocked. Well, I'm not sorry that you had to use your key, right, or your key fob. It's part of a layer of security that, just because it's kind of like if you lived in a secured apartment building or something like that, and here comes a group of people behind you. It's nice to hold the door open and let them in, but what if they don't live there, right? I mean, it's keyed for a reason, and so you key this, and you lock this down. If you could shut those doors and keep those locked, just have this one unsecured, and secure that one once class starts. But the problem with the open hallways is there's just no way to contain them here. I mean, they can go that way and go, and without having something that closes off corridors. So I don't know if the other end of this hallway, does it just go out or does it take a right?
You can take a right. There's stairs that go
Yeah.
up on the left, or you go outside.
Yeah. Easy accessible.
No, absolutely. I mean, and that's the battle that you're fighting. And as a pastor, it's difficult to start doing those things because I've had people come to me and say, this is ridiculous. I should be able to go. Well, should you really be able to go wherever you want to go? Because not everybody needs access to a mechanical room. I'm sorry that you need some towels and the door's locked. You're not on maintenance. You're not this. I'll get the paper towels for you or something like that. There's just certain things that you really, you shouldn't be able to just walk backstage. You shouldn't be able to just walk into anywhere you want to walk into. And that's sad, but that's where we're at in society. that we've gotten to the point where we just can't allow it, because you're going to have that person that goes to the child care area and they're just going to be standing there looking in a window, and you're going to go, oh, is your son in there? Oh, no, I don't have any kids. Why are you looking in there? And that's when that's when you start having those conversations, right? Oh, are you first timer here? You didn't realize this was the kids, because the main sanctuary is over here. You start Googling, oh, this is a registered sex offender. People will be argumentative with you when they're not doing the right thing. If they're here for the right reasons and you start inquiring into certain things that they're doing, if they get abrasive right off the bat and get aggressive with you, they're not here for the right reason, because they want to distract from what it is they were here to do, and they're going to argue with you. If you go, hey, this is child care, if you don't have any children, this really just isn't the area for you. Oh, okay, no problem, sorry, I didn't realize it. And off they go. More than likely, then you have less to worry about, right? But if they're like, I can go wherever I want. This is a church. What kind of church are you? You don't let me go wherever I want. Well, here, I'm going to show you where the door is. And because we want to have that discussion, we can have that discussion Monday through Friday. Sunday morning is not the time or the place to have that discussion. Pastors are doing things, volunteers are doing things, people here. We're not going to have that argument here with people here like this. You want to come back and argue our operating procedures, come back Monday morning, we'll have that argument, right?
That exact conversation last Wednesday night.
So, and it is, people they're funny beasts, and it's not always, here's a sad fact, it's not always the new person that pops in or the strange person. It might be somebody that's been going to church for 20 years. I've had my orders, can't park in this area, it's for VIPs when we were having a big event. Here comes somebody who's been going to church, for 40 years. I'm going to park there. Well, the pastor said you can't. I've been going here 40 years. I'll park wherever I want. Okay, that's really nice. Go park over there. I'm just telling you, want to go toe to toe over a parking place. And I'm like, okay, you're really setting the bar for believers right this minute. Thank you. Please move. And so it comes from all directions, and you have to be prepared for that, right? And sometimes, again, it's better to make the harder decisions on Monday when you're dealing with something and you can get it removed from the thing, get the area safe, and then turn around and go back. That's why if you look at these, you have general services report. Even if there was nothing on a Sunday, it should be dated, signed, nothing happened, right? That way, somebody comes back and said, well, this happened last Sunday. If it wasn't documented, I don't know that it happened. We'll have to go back, look at the cameras, and see what you're talking about, right? But I would always, and have my team always, document regardless if we had something or not. So make sure you fill those out and put on stuff. Somebody just trips and falls, scuffs their knee, offer them medical services. If they don't want medical services, denied medical services, abrasion to the knee. Because when their attorney calls you a week later or 2 weeks later, oh, by the way, they broke their kneecap and you didn't offer them medical services. Sure I did. I offered them, they denied them. Or we just called. I have people that I'll just call the ambulance if they're having chest pains. Oh, I don't need an ambulance. Nah, it's not your call, I'm gonna call. And then they can, if they turn the ambulance down, that's all documented, right? So if something happens later, we've done our due diligence. And I think there's vehicle reports in here and suspicious packages, and we'll talk about that in the sanctuary, but documentation is always your friend. Writing stuff down, taking pictures. These phones, as much as they are a pain, they're really nice when someone's kind of spooky and you're going click, 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 take a couple pictures. You go into my security room, or what used to be my security room at Grace, I got pictures everywhere. That being said, again, this is probably for the other room, but whatever happens on the security and medical team, safety team, stays inside of this team. If anybody goes outside and gossips about what happened on the team or something that we were involved with, you're immediately removed from the team. We're not talking about it. If somebody's having a divorce and it's kind of strained and they're separated and we got a protective order, so we have the 8x10 glossy of the husband up in the security room. We know he's not supposed to be there. We don't walk around the church and tell everybody that they're having a really bad divorce and it's really bad and he did all these things and now he's got a restraining order, because if God heals that marriage and they start coming back to church, what now if you instilled in the population of the church about their relationship? It's nobody's business. Only people that need to know are in this room, because if he shows up, now we have something we have to maybe take care of because he knows he has a restraining order. Everybody doesn't need to know that, because if that marriage is healed, that relationship is healed, we don't need a bunch of naysayers saying, well, I can't believe you got back with him because he did X, Y, and Z. Well, they should know that. Now, if they go around and tell their business, that's not on you, right? So, yep. No worries. Whatever you guys.
Yeah, let's head around so that way he sees the whole thing. We're under 5 minutes before.
All right. We'll move quick. Talk while we're moving. You got a lot, don't you?
What's that?
You got a lot, don't you?
We
Geographically.
224,000 square feet in all of our locations.
Oh my goodness. Now your satellite's pretty, we're going here, where you want to go?
So we're gonna go this way.
Okay.
That way there's stairs.
Stairs.
To talk about and then the way out.
Okay.
So, and we have about 5 people use that door on Sunday.
Yeah, I'd lock it. That's me, I'd lock it.
The first one you Sunday is our pastor.
Another one that keep locked? That's just sitting, I mean,
Well, that one's easy. So this.
sure.
Well,
look at there, you do have a
there's a code
keypad.
to that. However,
Is there a button to push and it releases it?
no, we can also just walk around.
Oh, you can just walk through? Nice, well, that's pretty awesome. That's good.
Adam probably remembers the code. I don't. That's what I do.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense.
So, in all fairness, when that door was first installed, these were 2 separate offices
Okay.
that they busted down and made that the meeting room.
Okay.
So,
There, see, you did it the right way. Right. So this is all business offices?
these are all the church offices.
Okay.
Which, at some point, I don't think most of the pastors know that code. I actually have to look it up each time. This one, the code does not work.
So it's pretty limited access then with the keyed door there, even though we can walk around it.
I mean, this is closed on the weekends. Well, no, it's closed on the week too. It's not normally locked.
I've never ever seen these doors be locked.
Yeah, actually, there's no key, so
Yeah,
I don't
you're
think this
just,
does lock outside of the.
no, it's sort of like those fire doors that we were around earlier. Huh.
So to answer your question, we got 7,500, 8,000 square feet out now. We have a big location on Lafayette,
Okay.
but on Sunday morning, we only got 50 people there.
Okay.
That's mostly daycare exposure to me.
Okay.
And then across the way, we have our community center, so we have 100 people there on Sunday for SML services.
All right. We're back. Oh, look at there, we're back.
So I have a question while we're walking.
Mm-hmm.
So my approach is what I found works best is when people are here that shouldn't be here or being needy, I do this with them very close
Mm-hmm.
because it kind of intimidates them and generally they leave.
Sure.
Is that the best approach or do you?
It is, and it pains me that you're doing it by yourself sometimes. I would always make sure I have somebody with me.
Well, that's why we're doing it.
I mean, I would not be truthful if I wouldn't say that I did a lot of things by myself, because I did.
Faces that don't seem to really.
Sure, and most people, you know, quite honestly, most people's resolve isn't that good. If their resolve is pretty good, then we're going to be in trouble anyway. Most people aren't. Don't have that kind of resolve. You know, that's why they call bikers 1%ers, because really they're supposed to represent the 1% that are truly bad. In all my experience with bikers, probably 1% of the 1%ers are really bad. I've come across quite a few of them that when it started to get nitty and gritty, they'd run for the hills. So.
I'd also like some guidance because we don't get risks like that I feel are dangerous a lot of times. We do get people who I think are off medication.
Yep.
Or, like, we've had a couple cases where people are here and don't necessarily think they're dangerous, but people are scared because they're
Well, sure, they're acting
acting like
right, not normal. Well, they're in their realm of normal, right, but not ours. Yeah, there's a lot of different scenarios. You're going to run into a lot of mental illnesses. One thing that you have to remember with mental illness is it's really why they're attracted to churches is most of the time when you are in some sort of delusional state, off your medications or on a narcotic, everything seems to get grandiose. And if you ever noticed, if you've been around those situations, grandiose is either government or religion. Those are the two things that they hone in on because those can be the most grandiose, right? All the helicopters are following me, the police are chasing me, the government's out to get me, or I'm Jesus. They'll flip the coin and go all the way to the other side of the spectrum and get very grandiose in their delusions. And you can't play into their delusions because it's their delusion, right? You can sit there and go, oh, there's bugs on you, here, let me help you. And you'll pat the bugs off, and then here's the fact, there's more bugs, right? Because it's their delusion. You're not solving the problem by playing into their delusion. Best thing to do is to isolate them, get them to somewhere where you can deal with them safely until law enforcement arrives, would be my suggestion. And generally speaking, they'll go with the program, even if they're in a delusional state. If they don't, then you have to decide as a security team what's your next step, what your pastor is allowing you to do. Is he okay with us, grabbing somebody by the wrist and showing them the door, or would he rather just contain them where they're at, call law enforcement, have law enforcement come in and take them out? And that's really up to your lead pastor on that one to make those calls. But you need to have those in place because when that happens isn't the time to make that decision. You need those decisions made first. We had I'll call her a militant gay woman come to Grace. She was dressed much like a man, looked very manly, went into the men's restroom while her girlfriend stood out with a video camera videoing to see how we would respond. We didn't have an operating procedure for that at the time. So I just stopped everybody from going into the bathroom. So she was in there by herself. And then when she came out, we had a discussion about etiquette and using the right restrooms. And what we did is we had what you would call like family restrooms or just a restroom that's not binary. And it's sad in a Pentecostal church you have to do that, but you have to offer them an option. You can't, if they say, well, I feel more comfortable in a men's restroom. Well, here's the fact, you can't go into the men's restroom. But what you can do is you can go over and you can use this restroom, right? It's a single toilet, it's for one person. You're more than welcome to use that one. You have to give them an option. You're gonna lose that lawsuit if you don't. And they will come in and they'll try it, right? You'll have handicapped people that'll come in and make sure you're handicap accessible. If you're not, they're gonna sue you and they're gonna win. There's a lawyer downtown Indianapolis in a wheelchair. He's made millions of dollars just going all over Indiana, going into churches and restaurants and public locations that if he couldn't get through the door, if he couldn't get to the restroom, if he couldn't do X, Y, and Z, he'd sue and he'd win. And he has a $12 million home down in downtown Indianapolis paid for by those lawsuits. So just be cognizant of those things. And again, it's a learning curve, right? This document is a living document, and we need to treat it as such. As things change, as people leave, as phone numbers change, we need to make sure that we stay on top of that someone should be probably assigned to making sure this is always up to date, because pastors will come and go, staff will come and go, people will come and go off the security and safety teams, and we want to make sure that that's up to date. And then when we do have an instance occur that's not in our SOPs, then we sit back and we look at it, we dissect it, and then we see what we did do it well, we see what we did wrong, and we come up with a new SOP and we add it to the operating procedures. And you always have to go by your lead pastor because They generally will have the final say on that. I don't know. Do you want me to go through? I always go through like medical emergencies and things along those lines, or you want to stay more on the safety side as far as?
Yeah, I think that anything that you want to share with us that would pertain to some of the common things like the team would be doing, should be doing as they're serving on that team, and if it's medical or if it's
Sure.
just exploring the spaces. You talked about some of these things
Okay.
already, but yeah, I just think any common practices
Sure.
of what you would encounter, what to do as you're on the team during those services.
Sure. Let's see what I got here. So, make sure when you're forming your team, you really need people. They don't all have to be people that are ready to get into somebody's face. And I would never put somebody in a position. So Betty was on my security team. She was one of my team leaders. She was, in her mid-70s. I wasn't going to put her in a position where she was going to get hurt. She was excellent supervisory. She was excellent as far as scanning the crowd and letting me know who did what. She was excellent at running my dispatch room. But if I had a dignitary or a special speaker, that's probably wasn't who I was going to put with them to keep them safe, right? And that would not be doing my due diligence for Betty's safety, right? So when you build your team, don't just focus on everybody has to be big and strong and all those things. There's different things that people bring to the game. Just make sure you use their gifts in the spaces that they're good at. When I built my medical team, there wasn't anybody on my medical team that didn't have some sort of licensure. I didn't, obviously if my safety team needed to put a Band-Aid because a kid scuffed their knee, they could do that. But a true medical emergency, if you have nurses or doctors or EMTs, paramedics or anything along those lines that are here that will join your safety team, those are the people that you want to go. Now all I required from them is they rotated on a schedule, and if I had emergency, I knew which one to text, and they'd come out of the sanctuary and they'd assist us. After you know people well enough though, and they see you walk in the door, so they see you walk in, all your medical people look back and be like, oh man, and you'll get like all 6 of them or whatever. So, and that's the same thing with security. That's the best part about it. I always said we had the best ministry because if something happened, it didn't matter if it was your weekend to work or not. Everybody went and came and assisted. So, make sure when you're building your team, build it correctly and don't skimp on the backgrounds. Make sure you do. Just because someone's ex-law enforcement or something like that doesn't mean they're a great candidate. I had a gentleman that had a stellar resume. Criminal history came back great. Everything was perfect. Years and years and years of security experience. Been at the church about a year. Wanted to join the security team. I couldn't find any fault with him. Put him on my security team. Within 2 or 3 months, I had one of the pastor wives come to me and say, that guy kind of creeps me out. And I'm like, why? And she's like, well, he got my phone number and he's just been sending me texts. She was on the worship team. And he's sending me texts like, hey, you're doing a really good job singing this Sunday. It was awesome. And she politely said, hey, thank you for the compliment. Would you go ahead and filter those through my husband, who was on staff? But he continued just to send them to her. And then it went from text messages to trying to talk to her after service and inviting him over for dinner and like setting the table where his wife and the pastor were on this side of the table and her and him were on this side of the table. Got really, really creepy. Another one of those conversations that when I pulled him aside and said, hey, we need to have a conversation about that, immediately went to, well, do you want to fight? Well, if anybody knows me well, I'm like, sure, step out in the parking lot. Let's go. That's not the way you handle things, right? So he immediately got very aggressive with me, wanted to argue, yell, and challenge the pastor to a fight because of just really weird stuff. And again, his resume was spotless. So don't be afraid of if you put somebody on your team. If it's not working out, it's okay. I've had people that have put in and you run their criminal history. I had a guy that came back with strangulation on a girlfriend. He didn't make the team. I had one that I didn't take because he just had traffic tickets. I mean, up to the day he applied, he had like 12 traffic tickets for speeding. And he came to me and I said, I can't believe you won't let me on the team for traffic tickets. And I said, here's the thing, if you can't follow the small rules, you can't follow the big ones. You know, it's not like it's been 2, 3, 4 years ago. Dude, your last one was yesterday, and you still haven't learned. If I can't trust you to, you know we got a guy, John, in the sanctuary that every 3 or 4 weeks he doesn't eat in the morning, and he's diabetic, and we know he's going to pass out because his blood sugar drops. If I can't trust you we know this is going to happen, if I can't trust you to be ready and do the small things to assist people, then how can I trust you to do the big things when they occur? If you won't if you won't follow the small rules and can't do the small things that I ask of you, then I can't trust you to do the big ones. And that's just fact. A lot of people want to be on the security team because, I don't know, they think it's cool or something. And it's really not, but it is the best ministry. These things that I'm getting out, other than this red one, are different carrying packages. Everybody carries different. This is a purse that my wife has. It has a holster built into it. Those bags, tactical bag. If nobody has ever seen body armor, I got body armor in here, which public can buy. I don't suggest it. It's really uncomfortable, but it does save your life. But they also make these for ladies. It's an undergarment. You're wearing a dress or something like this. If you have a small firearm, you can put in there, pull your clothes down over it, and no one will ever know that you had it. This is body armor. What you get, you want to pass that around. If people want to look at it, they can come up and grab it. There's just all different levels of that. And I didn't wear body armor at church. That's just something that you can see, or if you've never felt it. If you are going to be armed, and not everybody on my team was armed. If you are going to be armed, you have to qualify. You need to set up a qualification course. You can Google Indiana Law Enforcement Qual Course, and they'll show you the qual course. If people would come to me and, oh man, I shoot all the time. Okay, well, what do you shoot at? I shoot at tin cans on the fence post, and it's been 7 years. The reason why I'm proficient with my firearm is because I've literally put tens of thousands of rounds downrange for 30 years. I can tell you in the 2 years that I've retired, I still shoot. I don't shoot as much. I don't shoot as well. It is not like riding a bicycle. You're as good as you put into it. As a church, what I would like to see churches do, especially if you have a security team and it's armed, this is a suggestion, get them a gift card to the local indoor range. You know what? Every 4 months, 3 times a year, I'm going to give you a $30 gift card, and that's a half hour at the range, and make them bring in their target to prove that they went, right? You're not just giving them a gift card and they're just never using it. I'm going to give you a gift card, you bring me back the target, and then once a year, you guys get together as a team, and I'm sure somebody out here has a farm, I would hope, or somewhere to shoot, and as a team safely get together and qualify. And the team members on my team that couldn't show up and couldn't get around to getting qualified were under my authority not allowed to carry their gun anymore to church as far as the circuitry. Now, if they're just a parishioner, we didn't control that, but I don't want somebody that's not proficient with a firearm discharging a firearm in here, right? And I don't want anybody, you can't turn it into the OK Corral. So if you look at a sanctuary like this, I'd stage it with probably 2 security here, 2 in the back, and 1 or 2 up top. And my theory on a lot of that is if something did happen, I don't want all of these running to this location because we don't know if there's secondary things going on, right? And I don't want anybody taking a shot from there to here. Now, is it makeable? Sure it is. On a day like today when no one's in here and it's just us and we put a target over here, you probably hit it maybe all day long. I don't know, it's probably 50 yards, 60 yards. Pretty good shot with a handgun. Put 1,000 people in here yelling and screaming for their lives, you'll never make that shot. You might get lucky, but then again, you might shoot the person next to them that didn't have any involvement, and that doesn't do any good. So I trained my security guys. I wanted you to close the distance within arm's reach. I want you to run at the threat. And I got these for training purposes for my team. No real firearms at any training thing unless you're on live fire at a range. If you're training here at the church and you're running through scenarios, do not bring a real gun, period. If you want to have someone on outside security to keep you safe, then they stay completely out of the scenarios and they sit out there in the lobby or well aware, because we do not want an accident to occur, because if an accident occurs, homicide will come from the police department and they will investigate it as a homicide. And when we got shootings at the police range, everything stopped and homicide came out and treated it as a homicide, regardless of training purposes or whatever. It does not matter. You have to do your due diligence to be safe. So if you're going to train or do any of those kind of things, isolate all weapons, leave them in your car, leave them at home, have one person armed if it makes you feel better, have them away from the scenarios. Things along this line works very well for live scenarios. And I always taught my guys, I want you this close to somebody before you discharge your weapon. Can you make it from a distance? Sure you can. And I want you to train for that, right? I want you to be proficient. But in this circumstance where we have all these people here, I need you to close that distance to a very uncomfortable distance and take that shot. Now, am I going to be mad if you're from here to that wall and you have a clear shot and you take it and end that threat? No, I'm not going to be mad. But I want to ingrain in you that the possibility may come that you may have to put yourself into a position that's just not comfortable. And not everybody's built for that, and it's okay. I have different training devices that you guys can look into. You might be able to get it on that federal grant. I like to use things that look like and feel like real guns. This is a full blow black Glock. It's an IR laser. It hooks to my computer. I can set up about a dozen different targets on my computer, and it shoots nothing. It was a laser. But it has full blowback. So for training purposes for my team, I like that because it feels, you can click on a laser gun all day long, and if it doesn't have that blowback, it doesn't feel right. I can leave that out. And then when we're outside, not inside because your pastor will get mad. When we're outside, I have airsofts, and what I like about the airsoft is, one, you can have somebody on the aggressive side that's willing to take a couple hits from an airsoft gun, and it can sting a little bit, depending on where for whatever reason, people always hit you in the hands because people get focused on your hands. And this is just a side note. So wear gloves because they're going to focus on your hands. They're going to shoot you right in the knuckle. And that, you know what? It's a little teeny tiny piece of plastic, but it can kind of get your attention when it hits you right on the tip of the finger or something. So have someone dress accordingly. You can run scenarios with an aggressor with something like this. Again, please leave your real firearms at home or in your car. Do not bring them to the training and accidentally shoot somebody with a real gun. The other thing that I like with this that I did is you can set up room clearing scenarios. I'd take like blue tarps, build a room with a doorway, set the bad guy target up in, and teach people on how to enter a room and clear a room properly without putting yourself in harm's way, and use those for those. So those are good training tools. Again, would probably fall under the FEMA grant. These are not inexpensive. They're about $600 a piece. But I think you kind of get what you pay for. I like both of them are full blowback. I didn't shoot the other one because I didn't want a BB popping around in here. like I said, it's all really funny until your pastor comes in and says, "Why are there a bunch of things on the floor?" And you're like, "Oh no, sorry, pastor." So, or there's dents in the wall or something like that. So, I was looking for my PowerPoint, and my computer's not cooperating. You guys have any questions real quick while I'm playing with my computer?
How much time will we have? Somebody walks in. 30 seconds.
Every time, you probably won't know you have an aggressor until you hear a gunshot, and that is just a fact. You figure that first gunshot that you hear is one person dead. Now, however much time it takes you to stop that threat, if it's 5 seconds, if it's 20 minutes. I've seen scenarios that I have in my computer that went an hour and a half because the person barricaded themselves. That's the bad part, is we're always behind the 8 ball. They already know what they're coming to do. We're just trying to be vigilant enough to catch it. And there are visible cues, right? That's part of being hospitable and introducing yourself to people and shaking their hands. Pastor, you can get up for a second. People are real handsy these days, not so much when we were younger, but it's nothing to shake someone's hand and be like, "Hey man, thanks for coming here today." And what I'm doing is, 78 to 80% of people are right-handed, and I've just swept his right side to see it. Now I'm left-handed, so you have to try and figure out how to do that. But you have an 80% chance of shaking that hand. Now, if you grab that hand and you pull him in for a little man hug and a little sweep and he yanks back, again, it's just something that you put in your file and you go, okay, that was a little odd. Maybe he doesn't like to be touched, or maybe he's hiding something from me. If you've noticed me, I've pulled up the back of my pants several times since we've been here. It's because I have a Glock on the back of my pants, and it's heavy. It's fully loaded, 17 rounds. It's a pretty heavy gun, so every now and again, I gotta pull my britches up. If you see people doing stuff like that, even though I got 30 years of carrying this Glock, every once in a great while, I'll reach back and I'll tap it. It's called a safety check, and it keeps it in my mind that I know that my firearm's still there. I haven't lost it. It hasn't dropped out. And most of the time, you don't even realize you're doing it. It becomes force of nature. So if you're looking at somebody and they keep patting the same pocket, or they got cargo pants and they keep lifting up, they're doing things like that. If they're blading themselves, if you walk up and you start to talk to me and I'm left-handed, a lot of times I'll turn my left side away from you because that's my side I need to protect, because if I need to get to something, that's where it's at. So those are visible cues that you're looking for. Like if you're in here and the same person's got up and gone to the bathroom 3 or 4 times, did they drink too much coffee, or are they going to the restroom because they've hidden something in there that they're wanting to bring back, or are they going to the bathroom because they're continually checking themselves in the mirror, checking their equipment, checking to see if they're really ready to do whatever it is they're wanting to do. Because maybe they don't want to do it now because 3 or 4 people have walked up and said, "Hey, is this your first time at church? Hi, my name's Ethan. How long have you been going here?" Now I got your name. Now I'm going back to my little seat and I'm going, "Oh, well, look at there. They got anti-government views, think everybody are fascists, hates religion, thinks, Pentecostals are stupid. Maybe I need to give this person a little bit more attention." Now, does that warrant me going up and grabbing them by the back of their neck and dragging them out of the sanctuary? Probably not. But I'm going to keep a really good close eye on them, right? And if I need to have a discussion, at least now I have the evidence and everything necessary to give so if the pastor comes back and says, "Hey, this guy complained, you kind of gave him a little bit rough way to go about, asking him some questions." "Well, pastor, this is his social media profile." Pastor's going to go, "Okay, thank you very much for your help. Appreciate it. Do your due diligence." One of the things that we're seeing a lot is as the media has normalized different types of behaviors, one of the big things we're seeing now is the transgender people being fairly militant, very aggressive. Just killed Charlie Kirk. There was the shooting in Minnesota at the Catholic school. That gentleman, the media will call him or her, it was a man. He decided to put his hair in pigtails and grow it long, and you You can argue my ideology or my theology with me later, but gender dysphoria is a sickness. It is an illness. It is something that needs to be treated as such and not patronized. And when you allow someone to get into this world that the rest of us have to accept, when people and doctrines don't accept it, they become, not all of them, but some will become militant. And as Pentecostals, as Assemblies of God, we don't patronize homosexuality. We just don't. Do we love them? Are we empathetic? Do we, you come into my church tomorrow, I'll pray with you. I love you. I don't hate you. I hate the sin. I wish you weren't, and no different than any other sin that you commit. But the media has made it so normalized and desensitized to the public that when somebody disagrees with their ideology, it must be hate. And it's not. It's not hate. I love you is why I would tell you the truth. I'm not going to let you put your hand in a sack of rattlesnakes because I don't want to hurt your feelings. You just really want to reach in there. I'm not going to go, oh man, I want to hurt your feelings. Go ahead and reach in there. And then when you get snake bit, you go, what'd you let me do that for? Well, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. You really wanted to reach in there. Right? So this ideology that's being pressed by the worldview is starting to manifest in violence. And this kid that goes back to this Catholic school that he attended and his mom worked at, and his mom changed his name from to Robin from like Robert, I think, patronized this lifestyle knowing that her church's doctrine completely was opposite of what she was letting her son manifest. And once it manifested to a certain extent, he decided to take it out on a bunch of little kids and ended up killing 2 little kids and wounding 17 other people in the process. Those are the kind of things that you're up against. He never even entered the building. He did all this from standing outside and shooting through the windows. As a security team, as a safety team, that's what we need to be cognizant of and looking for when we're going through our different things. I'm looking for, there it is. Get me back on track if I find my PowerPoint. I know what time am I down to? Probably overtime already, aren't I? I know I've kind of been all over. Is there something that you want me, Pastor, to let's see what I got here. Your guys' landscaping's good. They don't have to worry about that. Quality locks, restricting access through thorough background checks, check-in systems for children and events. Make sure when your pastors are scheduling events that we do our due diligence. Watch your social media. I tripped and fell into praying at a Charlie Kirk and Irina candlelight vigil tomorrow, and I've been watching the social media posts, and there are a lot of people saying we're going to come and disrupt. So I have to be cognizant of that, right? That those people may show up. 9 times out of 10, they generally don't, but there are a few that will. Cameras, video monitoring, secure communications, adequate lighting, alarm systems, signage, and emergency equipment. Emergency equipment, so trauma bags, if you have any.
We've got some not kept up to date.
Okay. AEDs.
We do have AEDs.
So you know your AEDs, about every 3 years the pads expire.
Yep, we've kept up on that.
Okay, and you have youth pads and adult pads.
Yes.
Okay. Don't throw away your old pads just because they're expired. Keep them, because if you had a mass event, let's say a tornado comes through here, electrical line comes down and 20 people hit the ground from the electrical jolt, I would much rather have expired pads, especially since they're about $400 a set, I think, or $300 a set. Keep those, because if you had a mass thing where you could just hook those all up and just take that AED from spot to spot, very low percentage of that happening, but again, I wouldn't throw those pads away even though they're expired, but make sure that you keep up to date. Trauma bags, you want to be able to treat what your congregation size is. Again, a tornado sweeps through Lafayette, emergency medical services, this isn't the first place they're going to come. So you have to be able to hold your own. You need airway openers, you need tourniquets. So if people can breathe and you can stop bleeding, they will survive. It might not be pretty, but they will survive, and tourniquets are inexpensive. Yes, ma'am?
Do you have a trauma bag kit list that you would recommend?
I can get you one. I usually carry one. I don't know why it's in here. I may have left it at Grace.
Is that something you buy prepackaged, or is that something
I had my medical team build them. So I have smaller ones that are only about the size of this, and they literally will have scissors, a tourniquet, and an airway opener in them, and that's all that's in them.
So if I let one of our doctors or nurses free and say, hey, make one?
They should be able to build one. Then the trauma bag has more like your gauze. Israeli bandages, stuff like that are nice. They're expensive, and they got like that quick clot in them. So they're really nice, but they do expire. So you have to stay on top of that. Everything expires anymore. You can have a Band-Aid and it has an expiration date on it. But you just have to put whoever your nurse, your doctor, your paramedic is, and just say, hey, would you mind being in charge of checking all the expiration dates on everything? Make sure your trauma bag and your stuff like that isn't your boo-boo bag, for a lack of better verbiage. So you have like a first aid kit that hangs on the wall that's this big. It has aspirin and burn cream and Band-Aids and all those sorts of things in them. That's where people go to get stuff. You know, I couldn't tell you how many times I've walked into like one of the offices and there's my trauma bag open. And I'm like, what are you doing? Oh, I needed a Band-Aid. Okay, you're not going to find one in there. There's no Band-Aids in the trauma bag. Well, you got all this gauze. Yeah, please don't open up all my gauze and wrap up your paper cut. It'll be okay. So like church this size, probably at least 2 trauma bags, one downstairs, one upstairs, at least. And then you're probably looking at, tourniquets are, like I said, they're terribly inexpensive and you can buy them bulk. I'd probably have 24 tourniquets on hand. And again, what we're looking at is all this glass that makes this building beautiful. Tornado, high winds, flatline winds comes through or something, and 15 people are out there and they're cut deep. We need to be able to stop that bleeding for them. And once that tourniquet's on, it stays on. You don't, you watch all the old movies, they release it, they do this, they do that. No, once it's on, it's on. Once you get that bleeding to stop, you don't ever release it. That's for the doctors to do when they get to the emergency room. Saran wrap is a good one. So chest wounds, obviously you can't put a tourniquet anywhere in here. So saran wrap is good for something like that. You have a sucking chest wound where a lung's going down or something, any kind of plastic bag or anything that you can cover that, and that lung hopefully can reinflate is good.
You talked about some already today, but what are best practices for like us as team members as we are encountering people, like that balance between like wanting to serve them, almost
Sure.
like a hospitality team member
Sure.
in the first point of contact, but there's also what's going on in the background in our minds and why we're even asking the question in the first place. Like when somebody's out in the parking lot, the difference between a, hey, what are you doing? And hey, are you coming? Just what are best practices?
I always kill people with kindness. My off the cuff is always kindness, always not so much benefit of the doubt. I think 15, 20 years undercover, I'm pretty good at hiding. I have a pretty good poker face. But I kill them with kindness because I want to receive information from them. And if you shut them up right off the cuff with something abrasive, you're done. There's no conversation, there's no dialogue at that juncture. But if I can be like, hey man, looks like something might be wrong with your car. Are you okay in there? I know you've been sitting in there for a while. I just want to make sure you're not having a medical emergency, or maybe you got off late at the plant. You're just taking a nap or something. That's cool. I was just checking to make sure you're okay. Is there anything we can do for you? They know that they're on your radar now, right? You've killed them with kindness. They really have no reason to complain, and they may engage you. Maybe they did fall asleep because they work late. Maybe they are having a medical emergency, or maybe they're planning something nefarious, right? And that gives you the opportunity as you walk up carefully. Don't walk up to them, right? I'm going to approach the car probably from the back or the side and kind of peek and see what, make sure they don't have anything in their lap that's going to hurt me. And then once you feel where you can open that a little bit and engage them, then you're fine. You know, I don't want you to, you know, it's not like a spy movie where you're going to drop and roll and tuck and weave between the cars, but you can be cognizant of how you approach people. Even people in the lobby, when you approach them, there's a way to approach them that you can put them at ease, but you can also be looking and scanning at their body, where are their hands at, what's their feet placement. You know, if you ever watch somebody in a fist fight, 9 times out of 10, they'll lower their jaw before they swing. So if somebody squares up with you and all of a sudden they tuck their head like that, they're probably getting ready to throw a punch at me, because what they're doing is they're protecting their core, their head, because they're bracing for the shot that I'm going to send back at them, right? And you see a lot of fighters that they'll watch if they drop their left or right leg, depending on if they're left or right hand. If they drop that leg back, I might be getting ready to get punched. Those are the things that you read, but I think if you kill them with kindness, honestly, 10 times out of 10 for me, I'd like to say 9, because there's always that 1%. I've yet to have anybody accost me. I've always got right up into their little personal space, shaking their hand, giving a big man hug. Hey, buddy, I'm just here for you. What can I do for you today? Well, I just want to. Oh, no, come on, let's sit here and talk for a minute. I've been at this church like 3 months, maybe. And I don't know, it's maybe my second, third weekend preaching. And it's about an hour before service, and this guy comes running. He's just profusely sweating. And he's just, looks like he's had about 15 Red Bulls. Runs right up to him, and he goes, Pastor, in my prayer time this morning, God told me to come talk to you today. I'm like, I just moved to Bloomfield, Indiana. You got to be kidding me. How did this happen already? And I'm like, hey, buddy, let's go back to the office. And it was just, there wasn't a lot of etiquette there. He was sincere, good guy, nothing wrong with it. But I made a very quick, behind his back, hey, buddy, come on. And I didn't push him or anything like that. I just directed him back to my office where we could have a conversation. That way I knew I had him isolated away from everybody else at the church. I don't have a security team. I'm by myself, so I just told you don't do anything by yourself. I did it by myself. But I wanted to remove him. And it's amazing that a lot of people, you can just barely touch their back, and they'll just go wherever you want. Now, others won't, and sometimes you gotta twist them a little bit and do some things to get them on their tippy toes. But most of the time, you are going to be able to just compel people to, you know, oh man, you finally get somebody that maybe is going through psychosis, and you finally get them out of the sanctuary, and they go, oh man, I left my jacket. Hey, John will go get your jacket. It'll be all right. Hey, stay with me. We'll go ahead and we'll get your cell phone. We'll get your jacket, and just continue to run the conversation. You want to give them options, but not too many options. You know, there's nothing wrong when you have them out here. Hey, buddy, do you want to stand or sit? But what we're not going to do is pace, right? We're not going to continue this. It's fine if you want to stand here. It's fine if you want to sit down. So you're controlling the tempo to an extent, but you're still giving them what they feel like is control, because you're giving them some options. And there's certain things, I mean, people will say like verbal judo or something like that. There's certain times that you're just going to have to say things that people, if you try and be too eloquent, sometimes people don't grasp it, right? Hey, I'd appreciate it, please, would you, can you? You know, at some juncture you got to go, sit down, be quiet, or whatever word you want to use there. So sometimes you got to raise your voice. And again, especially when you're dealing with psychosis and people on narcotics. Honestly, psychosis to me is easier to deal with because they can come in and out of it a little bit. Generally, when they're stoned or high on something, they're just in it for the ride. And it's hard to find a foundational place to start any kind of vocabulary with them. Most of the time, even people, you just have to give them time to process it. If, you know, if they're bipolar or dealing with schizophrenia or one of those types of issues, sometimes you can just see the wheels turning. You just got to give them a minute. You can't go, hey, what's your name? And then if they don't answer in 10 seconds, what's your name? Man, why aren't you telling me your name? Well, if you be quiet for a minute, they might answer you, right? So give them time to process and answer you, right? So, because they got a lot of different things going on inside their head, and to them, that's their reality, right? We may not see it, we don't smell it, we don't hear it. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist for them. All right. Opportunities areas, again, I would establish some sort of parking lot, something. I know we're getting into the winter months and no one's going to want to stand out there when it's cold outside. No one wants to stand out there when it's hot outside. But it really would be nice to at least have 1 or 2 points of contact in the parking lot where someone's waving and saying good morning and they're coming in and all they're doing is looking at cars, right? And it doesn't necessarily have to be a security person. It could be the parking lot ministry, and they're sell it as, you're our first point of contact for people coming to church this Sunday. You're the first person they're going to see as they're headed in. So you're the cheerleader for everybody that's coming to church today, right? So you sell it that way, and you'll get a couple people that'll bite, and they'll go out there and they'll do their best. But what is nice, then you have that coming in, unsupervised children. A lot of people feel like churches are the safest place on the planet. And they'll come in, they'll start getting their little friends group, and their kids they're everywhere, right? And you just got to be cognizant of that because, again, not to pick on pastors because I am one now, but some of the pastor kids are the worst. I mean, because they spend so much time here that this is really home to them. So the times that I've been like, okay, get off the drinking fountain. You can't stand on the drinking fountain. I know your dad is, I get it. Please get off the drinking fountain. It's just silly stuff like that. But they get so comfortable with the surroundings, and the parents are engaging people because that's what they need to be doing. And as a security team, it's we need to be cognizant of that and kind of keep them reined in just a little bit so they're safe, right? Because again, they get so comfortable here, they get to the point where there really isn't any dangers, right? That I'm safe to do whatever here, and that's just not the case. Singular staff, I would try and stay away from that. I know it's difficult with volunteers, but we really want to stay away from anybody doing anything by themselves. Access to unsecured areas, we've already kind of walked around and looked at that. If there is an area that no one needs to be at, you just don't play that game, I guess, for lack of better words. If there's a hallway that they really shouldn't be in, and you've caught them there, and you've asked them, hey, appreciate it if you wouldn't be back here, and then 10 minutes later or next Sunday they're there again, we got an issue, and you may have to address that. Go ahead.
Sorry, so
No.
I lock all of the closets and stuff. You're saying classrooms should be locked as well?
If it's not in use, it should be locked. Really, no one should have that. I mean, and it's difficult because I don't know what your Sunday looks like if you have a couple different classes going on. I know you have the child care, obviously, in the children's church, but if there's a whole bank of classrooms that just really aren't being used and you can't secure that hallway, then you just lock all those doors. And then, when Wednesday night or whatever night comes around where you have your small groups or something, if you got to go in there and unlock those classrooms, then you unlock them. And even during the work week, there's really no reason for them to be open because when you're all in your hallway doing admin stuff, you don't want somebody to be able to come in here and just have full access to whatever, and then you guys all leave for the night, and you come in the next day and $50,000 worth of equipment's missing because someone hid in a classroom. That's when I get on my music people and my AV people. With all these windows, make sure to the best of your abilities, shield your stuff. Don't put a brand new, I'm not a musician, so guitar or whatever, and leave it leaning against a thing where someone can see it because they're going to do $5,000 worth of damage to your building to get in there and steal something that they're going to get, $50 worth of dope out of. So TVs, things like that, and I know now a lot of them are hanging on walls and they're mounted and it is what it is, but anytime you have something that looks like it would be really quick to grab, I saw as we walked by Pastor Odd's office, it's all glass, and then you have your laptop sitting right there on your desk. I mean, to somebody that wants a little bit more dope, it's no big deal for me to knock that glass out, take that laptop. So finding ways to minimize anything that would be visually enticing from the outside. Big one that's overlooked with churches is offering and bank deposits. I've seen a lot of churches do the same time, same day, same people, same route, and that's just dangerous. People are paying attention. I would mix up my route just a little bit, never send anybody by themselves for deposits. And even like special events, and you're here on like a Friday night or a Saturday, and you're like, hey, let's just go ahead and run this to the bank now, that's fine, but don't send somebody by themselves. And don't for the sake of ease, be like, well, you know, Bob, I know he's a little bit older, but he's retired, and he's already volunteered that every Tuesday morning he'll come and get the deposit and drop it at the bank for us. I don't know that that's who you want carrying your tithes and offerings to the bank. Be vigilant. Yeah, a lot of it's electronic now. We were at a district council years ago when it was in Fort Wayne, and I was talking to Pastor Ellison afterwards, and him and his wife drove back from Fort Wayne with all the tithes and offerings from district council for the 3 days? And it was just him and her driving back in their car by themselves. And if you ever drove that stretch of 69 between Indianapolis and Fort Wayne, there's a whole lot of nothing. And if somebody knew you had all that in your car, you're really not doing yourself a whole lot of favors if someone decided to try and take that. So I would be careful with that, and again, try not to set patterns. Parking lots, entrances, exits, visual enticements, special events. Again, pastor decides to preach about something that's political in nature or has become political, you just have to be cognizant of that. Watch your restrooms. I assume everybody, if we have a fire, everybody should, after all our years of Indiana schools or wherever you went to school, stay low, don't run into a thing. That's where it's really important for our child care workers to have a good roll call on kids, because let's say the building is on fire, you get everybody out. I would set up staging areas outside of the building, do roll call on your kids, have a paper document. I know a lot of stuff is electronic now. Have a paper document. Try and convince your parents not to come get their kids until you've done roll call. Because if this building's engulfed in flames and you're going, I can't find little Johnny, and the firefighter hears that, he's gonna run in the building looking for little Johnny and put himself in harm's way. And little Johnny mom may have grabbed him and beat feet, and we don't know where he's at. So are you always gonna have that parent? Yes, you are. Can you deny them access to their kid? No, you can't. But through training, through talking, through having conversations, you can minimize it, right? We can convince them, hey, we're going to take care of your kids. We're going to get them out of the building. We're going to be right here. And if you just give us a few minutes, take attendance, you're more than happy to take your kids, right? Just give us a minute. That way we can keep our public safety people safe and not send them into a burning building for somebody that's not there. Medical emergencies, we already kind of hit on. Make sure that you have people that are properly trained to do that. And make sure you have all the necessary equipment to do medical emergency. You've probably got pretty good response time here, though, would be my guess. I mean, I wouldn't think you're too far. Sir? Yeah, no, not really?
We're adequate, yeah. We were talking about, like cops and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Is there a procedure or something that we should have for them when they show up? What door to use?
It always helps, especially with your security team. If, especially medical thing, that's why I like my parking lot ministry, because if I have an issue, they already know. They go out and lead them to the right door to come through, and that way they're not just driving around your building trying to figure out which entrance they're supposed to use. Or if you have an usher or somebody that can jump on the team for those purposes, hey, if we ever have an issue, would you mind helping getting the ambulance or the firefighters to the right building? Talking about operating procedures, if you do have an incident where the police are called and weapons are drawn, when that police officer enters that room and says, drop your gun, drop your gun. It's not a time to go, oh, by the way, I'm on River City's security team. He doesn't know that, and all he knows is guns aren't supposed to be drawn in church. And all my years undercover, I couldn't tell you how many times guys that I've known for 20 years, and I'd be on a dope deal, and all of a sudden I hear a cop going, put the gun down, put the gun down. I'm like, man, who's he talking to? I'm like, oh, good. Drop my gun. It's not mine. It's the city of Indianapolis's. Let it get scratched. And then they'd look at me and be like, oh, Ethan, it's you. Cool. No, you can get your gun back up off the ground. I'm like, hey, it's okay. I'm good. So just realize their focal point is very narrow at that time, and it's not that time to have that discussion. If you did have an active shooter and somehow you got them back into a bathroom or into a closet or into an office space where you know that there's no one else in there and there's no way they can do anybody any harm, it's not your job to go in and get them out. If you can isolate them, if you can pin them down, wait for the proper authorities with the bulletproof vest, with the ballistic shields, with all the toys and gadgets, let them go in and get them out. That is very difficult for people that have a warrior ethos to digest, because especially if they've done damage in the church, you're going to want to go in and you're going to want to finish your business. But I can tell you, cutting through that doorway is the worst place to be, especially when they've cornered themselves in. All they're waiting for is movement, and they're going to open up. So do your best to draw everything back in, calm your adrenaline dump down, step back and say, okay, call the police, we got them holed up here. And now if they decide to poke their head out, you do whatever it is you need to do. But as long as they stay holed up there. Now again, I said if they're in there by themselves, they go into a classroom full of children, I'm going in. This is something that you need to discuss with yourself. I can't stand by why somebody else is victimized. It's just not in my DNA. That's just not the way I've been programmed from the beginning. So that's something that you'll have to work on. And all my years of law enforcement, all my years of undercover and doing things and church security, run scenarios through your head. My mind is constantly reeling to a point where it's probably not healthy. But like even when I'm sitting in here and I'm talking to you guys, I've already looked at my exits. I've seen people walking by. I keep glancing up. I'm always looking and I'm always running scenarios through my head. What if someone stepped through that door? If you run those scenarios constantly, you're sitting at your house, you're watching TV, you take 2 or 3 seconds to go, where's my phone? Where's my gun? Where are my children? Where are my wife? Are the doors locked? Just run those scenarios, because here's the deal. If you don't run those scenarios ever, when something happens, you will not react. You just won't. You're sitting at McDonald's. It takes 2 seconds to sit down and go, those are my exits, those are my thing, my family's here, my gun's here, I'm good, right? Somebody comes in, it's not my money, it's McDonald's money, but if they turn that gun towards me, shame on them, right? If I'm at church, if this happens, if I'm at home, I've seen some of the most ardent criminals in the world tell me that, man, the day the police come and they kick in my door, it's going to be X, Y, and Z. I can tell you 99% of the time when we hit that door, their eyeballs are about this big and they're standing there with their mouth wide open, and you could walk up and go, because they're in shock and awe that it's occurring. Now, they've talked about it a lot, but they've never actually processed what they would do. Now, there are a few. We had to do what we did, but most times people don't do that. So run those scenarios. What if somebody was in the bathroom? What if somebody was in the child care area? What if, run all those what ifs constantly. Let those things reel through your mind. When you walk into Sunday, get your mind right. Look around the church and go, if today's the day, God forbid, God, I'm ready. I'm ready and I'm willing to do what it is you have in store for me today, and think through those scenarios and prepare yourself mentally for what could occur. When you're at the range, when you're doing and practicing, hand-to-hand combat and stuff, use those types of scenarios in your head to get your mind right, sir.
Suggestions, I guess, to say the ladies that are back with the children and say barricade shelter in place.
Yeah, and that's again another thing about communication. Building this size, you'd be surprised. Gunshot probably wouldn't be heard in several places. So that's where your radio communications would be good. That is just you want to minimize mass chaos to an extent, and that's easier said than done, right? If there was a gunshot that rang out in here and this place was full, you'd have some people hit the floor, you'd have people just stand there and scream, you'd have people running for the door. I mean, they're going to do everything there'd be people that probably get up here and dance around in circles. People will respond in just some of the weirdest ways, but the more you talk about it, and I'd talk openly at Grace Assembly, I'd say, you know, I have a security team here. What I need you guys to do is be as calm as possible and get as low as possible and give us the opportunity to do what we need to do. My child care workers, what I need you to do, if it's an active shooter, I need you to drop those things over the windows. I need you to shut those doors and get them, if you're using your own body or if you have a wedge or something to put under those doors, anything to barricade that door. You know, flip side, if it's a fire, I need you to, you know, gather those kids up, stay calm, because once people start screaming, then everybody starts screaming. You're always going to have that one or two that are going to do it. But again, if they think through those scenarios and they train through those scenarios that, okay, the fire alarm, and I don't suggest setting off your fire alarm because it's loud and obnoxious, but walk through those. Hey, the fire alarm's going off now. How are we going to respond? And if your child care workers go, okay, I know I need to gather them up. I've seen where they have like a rope with bracelets on it, and they put a bracelet on each one of the kids, hooked to a rope, and they just walk them along in a little single file. Whatever they're training and however they're doing that, get them, they know where their quickest exit is. They know where there's an alternate exit if necessary. And they know where the staging area it is. You take a satellite view and you get them away from the building because you don't want them close to emergency trucks as they're coming in. You want to make sure they're not necessarily crossing the path where you think those apparatus, now firemen, they just may go everywhere. It's hard to tell, but you want to make sure they're not, all crossing right at the entry, right? But you want to get them away from the building. You want to have a staging area. If there is an instance like that where it is massive, you're going to want to have a pastor that's eloquent that can speak to the police or speak to the media, because the media will show up. If you give them a spot to set up, they will stay there. If you do not give them a spot to set up, they'll set up wherever they want, and they'll talk to whoever they want. Now, if you say, this 10 by 10 spot over here in the corner of the parking lot, that's where you can put your cameras and your trucks. That's where they can set up. Now, the nice part is you can send someone over there to give them information, right, that can get out to the public. If you just allow them access, for whatever reason, they always find the silliest person on the planet to talk to, and they'll be like, oh, fire was everywhere. There were flames and explosions and people were falling out everywhere, and you don't want that person talking to the media, right? So you designate them a spot, you say set up over here, and you take either a pastor or a staffer or somebody that can talk to whoever's in charge, and then go over to them and say, at this time, this is the information that we have to share. And that's what they get, right? And anytime they step out of the thing, your security person says, hey, we said the cameras need to stay in there. And you keep them in check, because they will. I mean, the little Russ McQuades, and if everybody knows the old Fox 59 crew, they're sneaky. They'll try and get, that best to get their little camera phone out and try and sneak in there and get a picture of something that they shouldn't be taking pictures of. So you got to keep an eye on them. But by and large, they'll do what you ask them to do. Medical. Okay, so speaking of that, command team, which is in your SOPs, whoever you pick to be your team commander, which generally was your team or is your lead pastor. I've broken it down kind of like how the military and the police do it. I've just changed the names a little bit. We have an information pastor, which is who would do that, liaison, administrative, and safety team coordinator. When you break it down and when you look through your SOPs, when you break it down that way, what it does is it streamlines communications. If your lead pastor is in charge, we don't need everybody in the church coming to them with information. We need to break that down into groups and just let 1 or 2 or 3 people interact with him so he can process the information better. One of the big ones that I think people overlook is the admin or the finance pastor that I have in there, especially because churches are very giving. And if there is some sort of mass event, like a natural disaster or something along those lines, let's buy bottles of water, let's get food boxes, let's do this, let's do. That's awesome, but somebody needs to keep those receipts. Somebody needs to keep track of the funds, that we're being good stewards with what we've been given, and be able at the end of the day to not look and go, we got $2,000, it's just where'd it go, right? So we need to be able to be cognizant of the fact and be good stewards with what we've been given. By bomb threats. If it's a phoned in one, I got a sheet in there with the questions asked. People are amazing. Don't answer the phone, go, you're going to blow up the building? Oh my gosh, click. Keep them on the line. Continue to talk to them. Continue to ask them questions. Listen, is there airplanes in the back? Is there railroad? Is there just traffic? And ask them what you would think is silly questions. Really, where'd you put the bomb? What kind of bomb would it be? Is it in a backpack? Is it in a suitcase? Is it in a shoebox? You'd be amazing as you have that dialogue, and all those questions are listed out, and it's not the end all of end all. You can make up more questions. How much information you can glean from people, and they might sound familiar, and you might go, that's somebody in our congregation. So you do that, and you listen, and you glean that. If there is a package, if they call that in and you look over and here's something over here in the corner of the sanctuary, don't go over and open it. I know that sounds silly, but don't go over and open it. Don't kick it. Don't pick it up and carry it outside. Evacuate the church. Now, police department won't do that for you. They will go to the pastor and say, what do you want to do? I want to evacuate the church, right? They'll send in the proper equipment and they'll dispose of it. I don't say to do that for everything, right? People carry backpacks now for Bible bags, stuff like that. Everybody leaves for church, and you're sitting here and you're just kind of putting new flyers in the back thing, and there's a backpack sitting here. Don't freak out and call the police and have the bomb squad come in and shoot it with a 12-gauge shotgun, right? But again, if it's sitting there and it has a noxious odor, if it's ticking, if there's something that leads you to believe that it's not just a backpack or something, then do what you need to do that's necessary to keep yourself safe. Because you just never know. One of the things, you don't see it a whole lot anymore, but you still see it a little bit. Methamphetamines, they do what they call a one-pop method now, and they'll take like a Mountain Dew bottle because it's green, or a different colored pop bottle, and they put all the components for methamphetamines in it. And most of them are volatile, like denatured alcohol and lithium. There's two things that are in there. And then they put the cap on it, and since it's extremely volatile, what they will do is they'll give it a little shake and they'll throw it in your yard. And they'll come back in about 4 or 5 hours when it's done cooking, and they'll collect it because now it's full of methamphetamines. Well, the bad part is if you're a groundskeeper, you're just a concerned church person that there's trash in your yard, and you pick this thing up and give it a couple more shakes, that lithium reacts with oxygen and it'll burn through the outside of that plastic bottle, and now it's like napalm. It'll just explode and it'll cover your entire body in burning liquid and burn you. Again, every pop bottle sitting in your yard isn't methamphetamines. Just be cognizant if you're looking at something, you look at it for a minute before you just reach down and pick it up. Right? Look at it and you're like, there's a bunch of stuff floating around in there. It could be someone's chew bottle, or it could be somebody, that put some denatured alcohol and a lithium strip and some ephedrine and some other stuff in there, right? So just be aware of those types of things, because they don't want to carry them on their person because they're so volatile, so they'll throw them in your yard.
Is it going to continue to react, or is there ever going to be a time when all those chemicals are just sitting there?
It eventually solidifies. And then that's where you end up with the meth, is everything just kind of starts to coagulate and solidify and gets hard in there and crystallizes. But at the very beginning, it just looks like a slurry. And then what they do is they take those lithium strips like out of batteries or something. So they'll be about as long as a AA battery and maybe a 1/4 inch wide. And they yank them out of there and jam them down in there. And that's where they get their heat source to cook it. But lithium's kind of a funny beast, because if it gets too much oxygen, it just bursts into flames. So how they pull it off, getting it from A to Z, I have no idea, but somehow they get it in there before it bursts into flames. And then the fluid is denatured alcohol, so heat and denatured alcohol, and it makes yourself a good little fire, like a Molotov cocktail, basically, is what it turns into. But, let me see. Suspects, we're looking for estranged husbands or wives, child molesters, thieves, con artists, stalkers, mental and spiritually unstable, veterans with PTSD. I had to deal with this. This is where my learning curve was on this one. It's very important. Have a lot of vets coming back from a lot of different things. And a lot of churches like to use pyrotechnics. I don't know if you have any loud booms or bangs, and I guess we don't do so many illustrated sermons like we did once upon a time, but we did an illustrated sermon, had a lot of pyrotechnics in it, had a guy that came back in Afghanistan, he got hit by a rocket launcher, took his leg off and a couple other body parts, and he survived, great guy, didn't even cross my mind. It started booming and banging in the sanctuary, and he went pretty catatonic, started screaming, fell on the floor, laid there. This is my fault. I should have thought of that. Be cognizant of that if you have veterans that possibly have PTSD. If there's going to be something in your service that is going to be loud, you want to give them a disclaimer. You want to be able to go, hey, bud, about 5 minutes into service, there's going to be a pop or a bang or they're going to do something that's out of the norm that could cause them to go into some sort of shock. So be careful of that. Con artist is another. You have that person that's been maybe coming to church for a while, and you hear them walking down the hallway. Hey, I'm a little short this month. Can you help me pay my electrical bill? And of course, everybody at church is like, sure. How much is it? $150. Oh, okay. Here you go. And then they get about halfway down the hallway. Hey, can you help me pay my electric bill? Well, and then you find out, now they've asked 10 people to pay their electric bill, and maybe they're trying to get it paid for the whole year. I don't know, but eventually stop them and Jim Burris might remember that one, so you can ask him. But people will take advantage of our niceness sometimes, so be cognizant of that. Red flags, we already talked about people hanging around children's areas, individuals that want to interact with unsupervised or unattended children, individuals identified to adults as friends, or your kids will identify them as like creepy. Listen to your children. So when your children come to you, they're like, so-and-so just makes me feel weird. That doesn't mean go over there and have a conversation with this person because it makes me feel weird, but it does put you on alert that there is something different, right? When your kids pick up on something and you say, okay, talk to your child, say, be careful with this, tell me if anything, and they come back next Sunday. Well, today they were rubbing my shoulders. Okay, so listen to your kids when they're giving you that kind of information, and listen to it and build what it is you need to build off of it. There's a threat report for domestic violence in there too. There's no sense in me rewriting it because that's the state issued one. You want to make sure that there is a safety and a security plan, and you also want to remember all those things are just pieces of paper. If you have a protective order or anything along those lines, it's not bulletproof, it's just a piece of paper. We just need to do our due diligence to be safe with stuff like that. Active violent threats, we've already talked about a little bit. A person that is currently using deadly force. So I think sometimes when we call them active shooters, that desensitizes us to what they're doing when they say the shooter. Like, let's just take Charlie Kirk, for instance, and you listen to the media and they go, the shooter, the shooter, the shooter. He murdered somebody. I can go out and shoot all day long and not do any damage to anything but paper, maybe a pumpkin or two. But when you're pulling the trigger with the intent to murder people, that is different, right? And I think that's part of our desensitization to some of this. Unlike most criminals, active murderers are likely to continue to use deadly force until they are stopped by somebody that's willing to do what needs to be done. It's usually an expression of hatred or rage, maybe indiscriminative, or seeks a specific victim. I have different case reports that I've looked over. Sometimes it's people that disagreed with theology and came back and victimized the pastor and his family. Other times it's just random locations. The victims that are collective, so they're always looking for large groups of people, often familiar with the location, so they will do some reconnaissance a lot of times. The area, attacks are generally planned to an extent. Very seldom are they spontaneous. Attacks are not limited to the use of firearms, so everybody kind of gets stuck on firearms, but it's interesting, you look at statistics, and there's tons of pastors that have been stabbed and poisoned and hit by cars, and so guns isn't the only way that they come after pastors and their staff, and generally involves multiple victims. How, why, and who, and this, again, these aren't the end of end-alls. May be mobile, possibly may attack from a fixed location. employ diversion tactics. The guy at the Catholic school threw in a smoke grenade when he knocked out the window, so to cause more confusion. Secondary devices, so Combine, a lot of people don't know because it didn't happen, but the kids that shot up Combine years ago had like half a dozen propane, 20-pound propane cylinders and put them at all the exits of the school, and they set them for 10 minutes after they started shooting, so they figured that's when kids would start evacuating the building and all those propane tanks would blow up and level the building. They got their alarm clocks for their detonators at Walmart, and they had plastic gears in them, and that's the only reason they didn't detonate. When it turned and it set the alarm off, it went through a plastic part instead of a metal part, so it didn't carry the electricity to the detonator, and it's the only reason they didn't go off. They may know your escape routes, so if you plan like staging areas for a fire alarm, and the fire alarm goes off and you start evacuating, it could be, you have to be diligent on your safety team, because if you haven't identified the cause of the fire alarm, somebody might just be waiting out in your staging area waiting for the crowd to come to them, wherever your staging area is, to attack, and you need to be cautious of that. May or may not be a regular attendee, and the murderer will always have the upper hand and the tactical advantage because we are always playing catch up. I'm going to skip, I got about a half dozen of them in here, but I'm just going to talk about, if I have time, Sutherland Springs real quick. Sutherland Springs was a small church in, you have time or no? I'll go through this one pretty quick. Sutherland Springs was a small church in Texas. Devin Patrick Kelly, November 5th, 2017. It's a little shotgun church, kind of resembles the one that I just took over. What happened was he had divorced his wife, had a bunch of things come up, and he was in the Air Force. And there was all kinds of red flags. This guy was domestic, beat his stepson, beat her, tried to shoot the commanding officer that disciplined him, went to like a mental institution for like a month or something like that, got him out. Air Force didn't report any of that to the federal statistics, so when he got out, he had another domestic or a rape or something and started buying up a bunch of guns. Well, he decided he was going to go back to his first wife and shoot up their church and kill her in retribution for ruining his life. So he actually goes, they have like a fair the week before, I believe, and he goes, and there's actual notes taken by their little security team that was like, guy dressed all in black, had tactical gear on, you know, just didn't fit the profile of most of the people at this festival. And they enough of a note where someone walked up and asked him if there's anything I could do, and he's like, no, I'm good, and kind of left, and comes back a week or two later, parks across the street, and when I'm done with this, if anybody wants to come up here and see the pictures, I'll put them on I don't have them on the big screen, so they'll be on my thing. There's no graphic pictures. He walked in, started shooting from across the street through the front doors. I'm trying to get back to my thing. I clicked out of it, and there it is. All right. So 11:20, he parked across the street, immediately opened fire from across the street, killing 2 people outside the church. He was wearing a black tactical gear, ballistic vest, black face mask with a white skull on the front of it, same thing he was wearing the day of the festival. Once inside, he started shouting, everyone's going to die. He proceeded up and down the aisle, shooting everybody in the pews. The shooting was captured on video equipment for future broadcasting. So far, the judge has sealed that, not released it to the public. After leaving the church, Kelly was engaged by the next door neighbor who had an AR, shot his AR and him twice. I guess this only happens in Texas. Kelly gets in his truck, drives off. Williford runs out in the street, sees some teenager driving his truck down, jumps in the truck with this teenager, says, we need to go after that guy. He just shot up the church. They chase him down the road. Williford calls his dad, says that he just killed a bunch of people and shoots himself in the head and crashes his truck. So he was shot 3 times total. 1 was self-inflicted, 2 by Williford. In total, Devin killed 26 people in the church that day, 10 women, 7 men, 7 girls, 1 boy, and 1 unborn child. 23 died inside, 2 outside, a couple at the hospital. 20 more were injured. The visiting pastor that day, so the people that he wanted to kill weren't even there. So there was a visiting pastor there. He died. He had 8 family members that came to watch him preach that day. Killed all of his family members, including his daughter and his unborn grandchild. He had 15 empty 30-round magazines that were recovered at the scene. He's 26 years old, former security guard and airman, lengthy disciplinary history in high school. Had all the problems that he had in the Air Force. All his friends just described him as he'd like go to the animal shelter and get animals out and torture them to death, things along those lines. So there was plenty of red flags on this guy for him to not be able to do what he did. I have the pictures, and again, none of these are graphic, of the church, and you can see with all the little yellow cones and stuff and all the bullet holes. What the church did before they demolished it, because they ended up tearing the church down, is they painted the entire sanctuary white, and then they put a chair where each victim was with a rose on it, and then the one with the pink rose is the unborn child. So you can, if you want a graphic view that's not graphic, you can come up and you can look at those photographs where the sanctuary has the memorial in it before they demolished the church. I do have another video I'll share with you for time purposes. I'll share with you at a different date. I may have shown it at the security class. It's the mosque in New Zealand, and it shows what happens when people don't respond, and it is extremely graphic. This guy goes into a mosque, and the ushers at the door, I mean, from point 1 to Z, he's unloading constantly, and no one at any point in time even attempts to stop him. He just walks around casually and just shoots everybody in the church. And he had a GoPro on his forehead and was live streaming it on Facebook. And some of us that follow that kind of stuff captured it before they took it down. But very, very graphic, but it gives you a very real view of what the mindset is of somebody that is coming to do damage to your church or to your congregation. There is no pleading with them. There is no talking to them. Those times have already come to a stop, and you have to have the reserve and the ability to step into the void for those that can't and do what needs to be done to stop it. And a lot of that, like we talked off the offset, a lot of it can be stopped by shaking a hand at the very beginning. Now, the guy at the mosque, I don't think he would have shook his hand. He jumped out of his car and just shot somebody right out of the gate. But a lot of these people that are coming, like even Devin Packard Kelly, what if they would engaged him just a little bit better? And I hate to what if some of this stuff, but that's what we do on the backside is maybe if he was gauged a little bit differently, he would have thought twice about coming back. If that security team maybe had been a little bit more diligent that day, he showed up in all tactical gear for a family fair. Right, that's just way out of the norm. So let's just have a really good conversation with that guy. On that note, is there any other questions, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned, we do dinner night at the community center, and so it's open to the public.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm concerned about people who might be carrying a gun or a knife, and even people who are helpful and good. Everybody seems good. But is there anything you can do?
That is up to your leader at that facility. If it's like staffers and stuff, so I would dare to say when this church is full on Sunday morning, who knows how many guns are in this room that are being lawfully carried. Quite honestly, that's never a concern for me. The only time I ever say something is when it's uncovered. So sometimes it's intentional. They're like, hey, I got a gun on my hip. There's nothing you can do about it. No, I can cover it up. It's just not aesthetically pleasing. Stop doing that. So other times it's just they're praising and worshiping. They got their hands up in the air, and their shirt comes up and gets kind of hung up on top of their gun. And most of these people I know, I can pat them on the back, kind of pull down on their shirt and cover it up. I don't really get concerned about that because I mean, you can view it, and it's a difficult place to view it from, I guess, because you can either just say, hey, this is a cold church, which means no firearms, period. The problem with that could be you end up with a Sutherland Springs, where a guy comes in and has free reign over murdering 26 people, right? But I have conversations out loud with people that carry at church and at those types of events that I have a security team in place. Please let them do their job. Now, if you're laying in a pew and you're protecting your family and you're laying there and you got your gun drawn and you're laying on top of your wife and kids and someone comes down this row with a rifle and my team hasn't engaged them yet, do what you need to do to protect your family, right? But what I don't need you to do is stand up with the masses and turn this into the OK Corral, right? So it really boils down to leadership. And leadership has it. I've been in churches that just don't allow, the church that I just took over didn't allow guns in it. So it's just up to the lead pastor. But then here's my perspective on some of that. If you're going to take away someone's ability to defend themselves, then you better have a really good security team to protect me if you're asking me to unarm myself, right? Because if you're going to ask everybody to go cold, not carry, you better have officers posted. I don't even know if I'd want security. You better have off-duty officers that are working part-time to protect me and my family, because I don't know that that's a good idea either. And the knives, that I've battled that. The ones that are in the pocket don't bother me, but you always have that person that has like that 11-inch pig sticker hanging off their belt, and I'm like, but I mean, it's just, and we're in a different culture. You go down to Texas, I go to churches in Texas, everybody, there's no concealed carry. Everybody's guns just hanging off their hip. You're just walking around going, everybody's guns just, here it's a little bit, we're more on the concealed side, but I would just ask them to conceal. If you can see them, hey, can you cover that up? I always, when I explain it to people that aren't officers or something, from a tactical perspective, the only thing that you have going for yourself is surprise. And if you're carrying open, you've just lost that ability. Everybody in the room knows you're carrying. So guess what? If I'm a bad guy, guess who my first target is? I always knew at Grace. I always told my team, I said, they're going to shoot me first. I said, but your job is to stop them as soon as they're done with me. So, because everybody knew that I was in charge of security. So I felt like I was walking around with a bullseye. I'd get up to use the restroom during service, and my phone would light up. Is everything okay? Is everything okay? Is everything okay? Yeah, I just drank too many cups of coffee. I had to hit the restroom. Sorry. It is good that you guys are feeling this out, and it's good to ask questions. It's good to have dialogue, because it is not a perfect scenario, and it never will be. But it's good to talk about it and start getting pieces in place and the groundwork laid to do this correctly. And you know what? And you're always learning. You're always doing. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I don't even start to believe that I know everything about what there is going on. So, sir.
Do you have a recommended sidearm for people who choose to do that?
Bigger isn't always better. I carry a 9mm Glock. Part of that is because I've shot Glocks for 30 years, and I have to say this the right way so the federal government doesn't show up my house. So I have a large collection of things at my house, and some of them are really pretty, and I love to take them to the range and play with them. I don't carry them because I don't practice with them. I know my Glock inside and out. I carry it. It drives me crazy when one of my security guys would go, hey man, I just got this brand new gun. I bought it yesterday. It's cool. Have you shot it yet? No. Please don't carry it then. I mean, if you're not proficient with it, and everybody's different. It drives me nuts that a lot of people they just go buy a gun and they don't even, because you may shoot that thing and go, this is awful. And guess what? There's no returns on a firearm. So find somebody that has a large collection. If you don't have it yourself, test drive a few firearms, different calibers. I would stay away from higher caliber firearms, especially for this type of scenario. You don't want that bullet to carry much further than what your intended target, right? So To me, a 9mm is easy to handle. It doesn't have much kick. I got 45s, I got Magnum loads, I got all kinds of stuff, but I want to be more accurate than I want. You know, bullet placement, I think you take a 22 and stick it in the right spot and your day's over with. So it's more about being proficient. And Glocks, to me, are similar platforms to Glocks. The more safeties in place, the more you're not going to function under duress. So a Glock, all I have to do is draw and point and pull. I don't have to flip a thumb safety. I don't have to do this or flip that or anything. Finger on the trigger and you go. So are they the prettiest gun out there? No, but they're workhorses. They're good tactical weapons. So as my frame size, I can carry a shotgun and no one would know. I carry a full-size Glock. My wife carries a compact, but 9mm is probably our choice of round, just because it's very proficient. It's easy to control. It's easy to be accurate with, and it does plenty enough damage if and when it's time. So 45s, 40 calibers kick pretty hard. It's hard to get a follow-up shot unless you're really, you know, again, if you're training, you're training with a 45 all the time, then you're used to it and you're fine. But again, it comes down to what you're doing, right, and what you're training with. I wouldn't suggest that, you know, you just pick something up off the shelf, or, you know, like I said, if I just go to my safe and reach in and say, well, I think I'll carry this one today. Well, if I haven't shot in 2 or 3 years, I've never trained with it tactically, that's just a huge mistake.
Well, and I asked you that, I put more rounds in my 45 than anything else.
Sure.
And that's what I would protect my house with. But my house doesn't have 400 people in it.
Right. Well, and then you have to remember, a lot of people get caught up on larger loads, and I know a lot of people get shotguns, and I don't have a problem with shotguns. And they're like, well, what load should I carry my shotgun for home defense? And I said, bird shot. Well, what about double-aught buck? I said, well, yeah, if you want to kill the person in the next room or 2 rooms over, right? Drywall's nothing. I was going to pop right through drywall. If I shoot you with bird shot, 16, average house, 16 feet maybe 20 feet on a big house. If I shoot you with bird shot with a 12 gauge at 16 feet, ain't gonna make no difference. You're done. But what it is gonna do is it's gonna hit that drywall and stop, because it doesn't have the kinetic energy to carry through. Deer slugs, I mean, you're just gonna poke a hole in them and go through that wall and out the side wall and into your neighbor's house. And so again, you're looking at kinetic energy and what you're looking at as far as that bullet stopping, because, you know, that's the bad guy doesn't care. They're gonna spray. They don't care. We have to be intentional for where every one of those lands. If I miss and it skips, wherever that lands is on me. If I hit them and that my behind them wasn't clear, there's a person standing behind them, and I hit them in a soft spot and I hit the person behind them, that's on me. I should have known that, you know, and that's difficult to do when the rubber hits the road. I mean, that's tough. And that's why I like closing the distance, as uncomfortable as it sounds. And you know what? Might you die? Yep. Here's the thing. This might sound cold, and I apologize. There's a whole lot worse things in life than death. And living one that is meager might be one of them. I talk to people, like when I talk about sharing the gospel. You have this gospel message of salvation that you're holding on to, and now you're afraid to take it to the public square because Charlie Kirk got shot. So you're going to take that gospel message and you're going to cover it up and not let the light shine. You're going to hide in your house because it's safe. That's a meager existence. God commands us to share that message with everybody, regardless. He never says it's going to be easy, never says it's going to be safe. He just says to share it. So we do. Right?
Hey, thanks everybody for coming this morning. Ethan, thank you so much.
No,
for your time.
appreciate it.
And you know, if you want to see some of the things that he was mentioning in there, or I'm sure you can stick around for a question or two.
Yep.
As well, I just want to give you some next steps. As we begin to form the teams and start scheduling them and things, I just want to encourage you, like the different things that have been talked about today, start to hopefully the goal this morning was to help you see maybe where your role and emphasis might be on this team. So some conversations Kyle will begin having with you all, and just you might begin to think through, like, in terms of medical or some of the security things that was talked about. Maybe you are interested in seeing all the way through qualification of a firearm as part of our safety team. Kyle can begin to work with you on those things and kind of those roles that you can take on the teams. And so that will kind of be a next step for you, and we'll follow up with some emails and things too. I wanted to make sure, Kyle, do you have something to say?
Go ahead, and then I just got one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. For anybody who is interested in doing that, if you have your cell phone out, I'll give you my cell phone number. I'll make that more available. Yeah, if you already have it, that's fine. If you don't, my phone number is 765-476-1541. One more time, that is 765-476-1541. I believe that can be found in the church information system too. It's in there too. Yeah, so if nothing else fails, you can read it in your manual. And then if you are interested and you'd like to come see, at some point I'm going to need contact information for everybody, so feel free to come up and I'll start writing stuff down if I can use one of these.
Yeah, I actually have, I've got everybody who was already RSVP, but also anybody who came who wasn't, who we didn't know, planning on coming. I've got all of your information. So we've got a team list of all of you and all of your contact information for Kyle.
And who's Kyle and why is he the leader?
Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning
Sorry, I didn't hear
of the
that.
morning, and it's also on our safety team manual that you all were sent out, and we have hard copies of. Kyle, he is our team leader of our safety team. So he is the person that is coordinating overall our safety team. And obviously, as you see in there are like pastoral reports that follows up. You can see like Pastor Josh is our operations pastor, is our first point of contact. I think you referred to that as our team commander in the original. I can't remember what terminology we landed on there, but he is that pastor over Kyle and all of the.
Who is he? And why didn't you choose me? Like,
Yeah.
what are his qualifications? I'm not being insulting.
No, of course. It's a great question. I'm assuming that I was asked to do this because I do not have a law enforcement background. I did 6 years in the Marine Corps, but that does not qualify me or make me know everything. So I'm very interested in getting all kinds of different perspectives, especially if you have something law enforcement, medical, all the things that Ethan was talking about, or one of the best leadership things I ever learned was how little I knew, and that anybody can bring a perspective that just sometimes the light turns on and they have great ideas and it's something you just didn't think about. So everybody has, and by all means, please, I want to hear it. And if I'm not doing the job that I should be doing, my role can be replaced. And if you're a better leader, by all means, I'll follow you. That would be the way to do that.
You want to lead it, Gail?
No, that was just.
You also went to the 8-hour class, didn't you?
Just so you guys know,
I did.
so when the ISOM class happened earlier this year, I don't even know when it was.
Last fall, I think. I don't know.
Down in Indianapolis, so I attended that, and I don't remember who suggested I invite Kyle. So Kyle has the military background, and what's that?
Pastor Robbie did.
Pastor Robbie, yeah, and he had a lot of that, and Kyle had been involved in a lot of different volunteer areas. So as a leadership team, we were kind of trying to plug him in because he was doing 4 or 5 different things randomly. And when we brought him to the security training, I just remember him like the whole time, he's like, Josh, we need this. Josh, we have to do this. And on the way home, he's like, we're driving, he's like planning, like, okay, so we need to do this, we need to do this. And so it's a combination of his background, but it's also something that he instinctively had a passion for. And like he said, he's been very teachable. He's not going into this saying, hey, this is what we have to do. He's asked for feedback. So, why Kyle? Because he instinctively had a passion for this, and he kind of has that leadership quality. And he also understands the dangers. On the way back, he was like, well, we can't have people that are just like, I want to shoot a gun. So, he...
Our goal is still to win souls for Jesus Christ. We're not necessarily trying to win.
Right.
Yeah,
Will
so
if we
it's a
have to, but
combination of his passion for what we're doing, but also for the ministry. So that was why we asked him to lead them.
awesome.
Okay, so last thing to note is a lot of what was talked about today, the actual written down protocol for that, the pathways for that are in the safety team manual. So that is something to familiarize yourself. A lot of the scenarios, a lot of the things that Ethan was saying today in terms of like playing out in your mind and walking yourselves through our scenarios and who to talk, when to reach the team leader, when that Pastor Josh gets involved in that, when myself and Pastor Robbie get involved in that, is documented and put in there. And if it's not in there yet, then a specific question you have or something, then that will develop over time. But a lot of it to begin with is in there. So that's something to think about and familiarize yourself with as we encounter the different things that we do here in our services. All right. So there'll be more coming, but this was great. This is so good to get us launched. And I just want to pray, and then we can go. All right. God, thanks for today. Thank you for, Lord, an opportunity to serve people in this way, to love them, to help them in this way, but also, Lord, an opportunity to cherish life by what this team will be doing and how they will be serving, to protect life. Lord, we understand your value that you place on life. And Lord, I just pray for this team as they begin processing ways that they are going to be a part of this team and use their abilities, use their personality. Lord, I pray that for all of us that you would make us, Lord, innocent as a dove, but shrewd as well. And Lord, help us to balance your love and your truth, and to be people who do that, and the people we encounter as part of a safety team, and cherish life as we do it. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hey, thank you guys so much.
Awesome.